I'd like to call our meeting to order here. It's actually our recess meeting, our planning retreat for the year. On behalf of all the county commissioners, I welcome staff and guests here. We've only got one guest today, but everybody else we consider county employees. We think this is an important session, and it's important to have input. We'll try not to bother you unless it's serious. We'll try to be expeditious and get done ahead of the schedule presented here. But we do have some issues to deal with, and before I get on with that, I want to make a special welcome to you, Neil. Neil has been, well, I don't know how long you've been with the Association of County Commissioners and been involved in our governmental affairs. But we do appreciate you being here. I know you got up early, and we'll go that. But just before we start, I'm going to check with the other commissioners who've had a chance to look at the agenda in front of them and see if we need to change anything up front.
Well,
Do you want to
I
add
called-
Rodney and
I called and talked to you. I've got to leave at 11 due to a personal matter. So I do think there's some time frames on here that will be condensed greatly.
I do too. I don't see any need to change anything, do you?
are you going to add Rodney Cates and Ronnie Tate?
You will have them, yeah.
Okay, they're on it.
That was actually on the last agenda, and we'll move that up.
Okay.
But Neil, thank you again for being here, and it looks like we're going to follow this agenda as close as we can. We will have our county engineer, and he's been warned. Terse is the operative word.
Well, I appreciate you having me this morning. Like I said, Neil Emery with the Commissioner Association, been about 10 years, but I'm an old retired county manager and actually started my career in Caswell. Back in 1982, I was county manager of Caswell County, and I remember Numa Baker, who was the manager here years ago, really helped me a lot. Being young, he didn't treat me like I was young and stupid. He was very helpful for that. So, Rockingham County, somewhere I've been and been close to over the years. So I appreciate that. I understand your time and respect that. So I will try to begin. And the first item on the agenda about community strengths and areas for future work, I'm going to touch on that very quickly so you can reserve the time you need to do the things you need to do as far as your planning retreat. I think you should have a handout here, just some notes I put together, some data that maybe you should be mindful of, and I'm going to touch on some of the highlights. I think you, as a respect, one of the things we note here is about community strengths. Y'all know the strengths of this community. It's its location, its people, your natural resources, and all the things that make it a special place. So, but mainly retreats is when you look at times and things you may need to consider, or factors that may be something to consider as you move forward. And so I've sort of tried to pick out in this data that I provided you here some of those things just to be mindful of as you plan for the future of the county. And I'm just going to touch quickly on them. First, I just note your population and where you've been. 1970, 72,000, peaked out, and looks like in 2030, peaked out, in 2010, and now see some decline. Just in comparison, look at that, the state of North Carolina is increasing in population 30% over that time frame of the day. So that just gives you a snapshot of how the rest of the state. Interesting in looking at that, 1 out of 4 people in Rockingham County weren't born in North Carolina. That's an interesting note. It's people, you're having a movement of people out, but also people moving in. So there's one out of 4 were not born in the state. Looking though, I think it's very interesting for every county to consider is first looking at age groups and how your demographics of the county is changing. If you look at age 0 to 4, that's your future students. As you can see, like 85 out of the 100 counties, your 81 is decreasing simply out of birth rates, and young people aren't having children like they did, and they're not having them as early as they did. So you can see in 1990, 5,777, 0 to 4 now down to 4,947. That's projected 2039. That's the implications for school system, the needs of schools, the needs of education moving forward. So that's a significant number to pay attention to. Even more, as far as county service potential, is the growth of people over 65. A couple of significant things there. One, they're moving out of the workforce. 2, they're going to have service needs. So you see from 1990, 14% of your population over 65 to now closing in on 1 out of 4 people in the county is over 65. So it's an aging population. And with that's going to come change. And with that's going to come, and I noted the median age. You've gone from 35 to 43. And by 2039, it's actually back down a little. In 2020, it's actually 44. That's a significant change in the age of your population. And that's reflected in your labor force. You see there, and I have the definition noted below, labor force, but 49,301 in 1990 down to 41,297. That's a change of people retiring, the baby boomers moving out of the workforce, and you can just see a decline of how many there. So that's just data there and reflected, and as you talk about economic development and you talk about where you go forward, that's just key factors, I think. And if you flip to the next page, also note your ADM in the school system. Fairly significant decrease. You're not alone in that. Just a lot of change in the school system and the number of students across the state. But that does have implications, and we'll talk a bit more about when you talk about, interesting enough, you're ranked, and we get to that, capital needs for school systems in the 22nd, but then you have declining enrollment. So how do those two go hand in hand, and how do you plan for those in the future? But quickly on just educational attainment, which is key in economic development, the county ranks 70th in a bachelor's degree or higher, so like 15%. And then high school graduation ranked 61st out of our 100 counties. And these county line books, we're happy to have copies here for you, and please feel free to take one. You may already have one, but it's just some good information. 73rd on local current expense out of the 100 counties. Supplement 62nd public school facility needs, and that's the note of 22nd. That's interesting in the fact that you have a declining ADM, but 22nd in needs. That's where a lot of our school systems, and we encourage them to look at your ADMs in the future in planning. A lot of systems across the state are looking at school consolidations, closures because they're declining ADMs. We're just telling counties to really think through that process. That's key decisions, very emotional decisions for a lot of communities. You want to be mindful of as you go through that. So that's other key in that too is, unfortunately, the counties cost the school system. When you lose a student, the state may save money, but a lot of times the county still has to heat the building, you still have to maintain the building. All that the costs that the county has are still there, but even when you have, this class may go from 22 to 17, but the class is still there. And so the county still has those expenses they may incur. So that's where we're working with the school system. Charter schools, which is a significant part of our educational system in North Carolina, now 4% in the charter schools. I think y'all have strong charter schools here. And then children in poverty, 24% ranked right in the middle, 51st. Some barometers of livability, violent crime, 42nd. You're on the good side of that, of the 100. Tax rate, 50th, dead in the middle. Per capita income, fairly in the middle. Broadband access, and that's a big tie into economic development, 58, and then the median. Interesting, on a positive note, median family income change, 13th highest in rank of growth from 2008 to 2017. So that was interesting. But I do want to, on the back pages, interesting numbers to reflect. And sometimes we measure economic benefit and economic growth based on unemployment. But this is a measure I found from the Rural Center, which notes, and if you follow this bar chart here as we go, is how the county's growth has taken place, measuring in 2000, making all dollars currently 2016, how growth in your wages earned in your county has been. And it may be, so you see that top is the 6 largest urban counties. If you measure it in dollars, the wages earned within their county has increased 25% in the last, and when you consider 2000 as the benchmark. But then if you drop down to our rural counties, it's actually lost wages earned up to close to 10%. And if you flip to the last page, not the last page, next page, Rockingham County compared to rural counties, actually have lost close to 20% of the wages earned in the county since 2000. If you look at all dollars, that's 2016 dollars, but reflect that back in the year 2000. What is that reflecting? That's a reflection of losing manufacturing jobs. That's a reflection of people getting out of the workforce. We saw your labor force decline. We saw your manufacturing some losses. What does that reflect? Less dollars being generated by wages in the county. And of course, that's to be considered is the economic engine that runs your businesses here, your economy, day to day. And I just thought that number I wanted to share with you in the comparison. And you're not alone in that. If there's any consolation, it's just something that's happening and reflects within our state and within our rural areas. And I don't say really rural because I think it's non-urban sometimes. Maybe it's the better definition of lumping everybody's 85 rural counties, because your dependence on urban areas is tremendous. Just like where I retired in Harnett County, we're dependent on Wake and Cumberland. Here, y'all are tied to the future Guilford and other urban counties because you'll have a lot of people work there. And so it is tied to that.
But your numbers are 08 to 16. As far, well, I mean, they're 2000 to 2016. You don't have any statistics after 2016?
No, that's the latest they had from the rural center.
So that was through 2016?
Yes, absolutely.
And we really struggled between 08 and 16.
Yeah, and I'm sure that gap's been closed, and that's a good point. By 20, it's closed more.
Yes.
But I think, but I just want to share, that's the latest number they had available. And
I want to build, because that's a key point that Commissioner Berger. The other thing that I think is significant, even if you just look, approaching 16, how much steeper in the same amount of time the urban counties have gone up, i.e. they're ahead and they're getting ahead faster. And that's going to be important to us as we look at target areas.
well, and
Catch up.
absolutely, and I think, when North Carolina's gone from, I think it's 1 out of 4 people now live in 2 counties. And, 1 out of 5, it's going to quickly become 1 out of 4. And numbers I've heard in 20 years, 80% of the economic development in North Carolina is going to take place in 2 counties. There's some projections of that. I'm not saying that's going to be ironclad, but it's evident when you see it.
Well, I don't have the numbers, but it looks that
Yeah.
way.
So I think it's to be mindful, and when those counties are competing for transportation dollars and they're competing for education dollars, it has an impact, I think. So, but I think, and that's why I think some of the challenges facing counties such as Rockingham and counties across the state, and that's why I wanted to share this data, some of it. Like I said, I think it's just challenges that I think counties can meet, and I just wanted to touch base on some of the things to be mindful of as we move forward in your discussions. I think counties are going to have to, evidently, and you've got children, you know that they seem to want to live in urban areas and downtown urban areas. If you've been in downtown Raleigh or downtown Charlotte or downtown Durham, that seemed to be a trend where years ago they went to the urban to the suburban. Now they seem to be moving back. I think counties we're going to have to let the young people know there is opportunities in more rural areas, and there's advantages to not being in that traffic in Raleigh and that traffic in Charlotte, to come home and let's help you be successful at home and let you stay at home. And I'm speaking, like my daughter just married, and she married a Green Beret at Fort Bragg, and she's in Durham, and they're living in Sanford, and they just thought that was awful. They're going to have to move to Sanford, but they've actually loved it, and they found out there's a lot of advantages to living in a smaller town, and they really enjoyed it. And I think smaller communities are just going to show that and show the communities. But right now, that's there, and I think working with your towns and things, it's just going to have to be strategies of how to bring young people back, and how to bring young entrepreneurs into your communities, and how to do that. That's going to be a selling point. Interesting enough, I was in Boone, we were meeting with the gentleman who started the Appalachian Brewery there, and I said, they said, how did government help you? And he said, the biggest thing I want in government is to get out of my way. It's just let me be an entrepreneur and do the things I need to do to be successful. And the type of things he was talking about, I don't know about y'all, but young people now, we said some people judge them, but I've been in restaurants and businesses and things and thought, who thought you could turn this warehouse into a restaurant?
Well, Emery,
turn it-
I accept all that, and I'm all for it, and I love to see it and pat people on the back. But the other things here, and all these guys have heard me say it over and over, and I think they're on board. What is pointing out is the haves are the urban communities. And our schools and other services in the rural communities are going to suffer until the state takes some action to level the playing field. What I'm saying, if your arm is sick, Emory's sick. And if we got counties in the state that are sick economically, the state's sick. And over again, with the balance of power in the legislature and the economic issues going on and the population, you know, we ride at 50-50 on both of those things now, urban versus rural. But we saw it most recently a couple of years ago when we couldn't even get an 80-20 split in the sales tax. So that the poorer counties, if you would, are paying the rich county. They're robbing from the poor because taxes are being kept where they're collected rather than the per capita. And I'm just picking on that as an example. But you can take this back to the association. They're going to have to get off the fence to have the support of the rural counties, in my opinion.
Yeah, they failed us in that topic big time.
I just make that as an observation, and I suspect you've heard it before. I guarantee you'll hear it again.
Well, and I think it's a good point, and I think it's a good point. I sometimes encourage having work mostly in rural counties. Rural counties need to let their voice be heard. It's real easy for Mecklenburg and Wayne to let their voice be heard, but we're going to have to let our voices be heard more. And two, I think counties are going to have to be, you're going to have to let people know that there is the livability here, plus the school system quality here, plus the amenities are here, make it worth the while to consider this to be part of, stay here and be part of your home or to move here. And that's what the challenge is going to be for so many of our counties that aren't. Because, you know, the concern you have here in looking at your numbers and like numbers across the state, if you continue to see your wages drop and your workforce diminish, you know, how are you going to support the infrastructure of the county? And I think that's where you're going to have to get, one, the state, but two, promote within and how you recruit and how you build. And of course, a lot of those young families are going to be looking at school systems, they're going to be looking at livability, they're going to be looking at what they...
I accept that.
You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you're
I know
saying.
how they move out of the
Trust me,
country
we're
on
working
cable
hard.
and broadband.
Guys, wouldn't you say we're working hard on that? But ultimately, show us the money. I mean, I just went to a meeting yesterday where they're talking about increasing the budget for education only in the state, $1 billion a year. Well, that's all well and good. And I think these are good programs. But you can't go by area in spreading that collection of money. It's got to come from the folks that have more money. And so I'm just making a point in front of these guys. This disparity economically is going to have to be dealt with at the state level eventually.
I agree with you. I mean, like I said, when you have just a handful of counties that all the gross, that's not North Carolina in the past, but it's become North Carolina. And that's the
It
challenge.
is. And honestly, we're doing pretty well here compared to some.
Oh, absolutely.
Go down to Scotland County.
Go east to 95.
All right.
That's the challenge.
But move
So
on.
anyway, I just wanted to share that data and some background, some numbers and going forward. I think I share it because I tried to pick on numbers that sort of reflects. If you turn to the next item, the goals you've established in the past, the guidelines you utilized in the past, and start that discussion. And I think economic development, I believe, is the first aspect of that. And I'm going to turn to Lance or Paul to give an overview of the economic development aspect of your vision, mission, and strategic focus areas, and that's the first.
Speaking to the other commissioners, do we need to make any adjustments to anything on this sheet?
Phil, what
I
you
mean, we
talk
should be
about
able to move
Oh,
through
yeah.
this
Yes,
pretty
yeah,
quick.
yes. Yes.
I mean, personally, I'm satisfied with what we've got here on the entire sheet.
The only thing I would add is there's a few that we've somewhat accomplished.
Okay.
We can continue working on those, like schedule EMS transport calls where possible. We have hired a scheduler in that aspect. I think that's an area that Rodney Cates can elaborate on more, but we're successful in so far. Trying to see if there's others that were on here that there were.
So you're thinking there's something that we need to remove or just,
Absolutely. I mean, there could
Okay.
be something on here, if you feel like we've achieved those goals, and we can kind of run through those real quick, or however you want.
yeah, I would just touch on the ones that we need to remove,
All right.
unless somebody's got some other ones they want to discuss.
Well, I don't, but I'd be interested. I don't know how thoroughly you've gone through this, Emery. But how does this match other counties, particularly those that are close and are good models for us?
I think it's a good summary of what each county needs to be working toward. I appreciate the fact of seeing working with your municipalities and commercial development and retention, all those things are positive. So no, I think it's a good reflection of counties in the same situation as you.
All right, we've got it. We're going to look through it with your permission, guys. But Paul, we're going to go through this promptly. Would you look at the economic section and tell us if there's something that needs to be adjusted? Lance will be asking you about the next one.
Yeah, I think they're all broad enough that you can create an enhancement implementation plan for water and sewer infrastructure. I don't know if you want to specify that anymore. I know that's an area that we've been putting a lot of effort behind. That may still cover what we're doing with the water line extensions.
Yeah, that should be broad enough to be able to keep in there, because we're constantly trying to work on water and sewer.
And we're going to look at that specifically a little later, right?
The water policy, yes, sir.
All right?
Yeah, you're good.
You guys happy with that?
The next one, there's really, I would keep that as the same, and those are ongoing tasks that you shouldn't have to modify that.
Some of them taking so long, you might want to go ahead and take them off, like Health and Human Services. I don't know how long it takes to find, but 10 years should be long enough.
It takes a while. I mean, Buncombe County, they're still.
I mean, if they're not going to be working towards it, let's remove it. There ain't no sense in they're doing it if you ain't going to be working towards it. I haven't heard one single thing about one thing they've done stepping forward to accomplish this goal.
I think when Felicity gets up later and speaks, she might can hit on a few of the
I mean,
places.
it sounds like to me we need to remove some board members over on that panels, because evidently they're holding the whole process up that this board wants to accomplish. So if they're not going to accomplish it, then get them off the board and put somebody in there to do what we asked them to do.
I will say, during budget time, at least, Felicity, she's here. I think she is there. She can answer this a little bit more. I know they're always looking to try to split employees the best way that they can between funding sources so that it's good for the county. I think we split at the director's salary, we split some admin people this last year, we split. So I know that's something they come to us with and say, we think we can split this a little bit more and put more of this person in DSS, which they can draw down more typically in DSS. So that's a way that they're looking to try to consolidate.
Public safety, you can take out the schedule part, but you can leave the rest of it in there. I don't see any other ones, do you?
I'd like to add one if I can. You mentioned a good thing about Rockingham County as being such a livable county. This is a great place to raise your family, send your kids to school, and most people here work out of county. And I think we ought to kind of do something to promote that. You know Greensboro, all these bigger counties are always going to be building, expanding, needing jobs. And Rockingham County needs to be a step ahead to say, hey, yeah, come live, Rockingham County. We've got great schools, crime rates low taxes, great place to raise your family, and you can go to work outside the county.
And I think that's a good point, and a lot of counties promote that you can probably buy a house per square foot cheaper
Right.
here than you can.
I'd like to see it's up to this board, but I'd like to see something that this county is doing to promote, this bedroom community, which I feel like we're always going to be that bedroom community compared to Guilford. Everybody wants to live here, work there, and go play there, and come back home. Because I don't think Rockingham County can change anything about young people. Young people want to go have a good time, drink a little bit, and that's where you do it in Guilford County, so, which I'm fine with that, but, I think the county needs to look at ways to promote that livability in this county for people raising families.
You only do that when you put it under quality of life.
Well, or, I mean, you could argue that it would fit under economic development
Right.
as well, and it's already continue to explore options to increase the attractiveness to investors, and also promote and support small business development.
Yep.
So
That should cover
you
that.
could certainly put what Craig's talking about under both of those, and possibly some other places.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Craig is saying, and although I think I can see it fitting under obviously more than one topic area, but I think if we're gonna say it, let's say it, put it in, find a condensed way to articulate it and make it a bullet point or something.
Okay. Would it just be promote livability? That's the goal. And it would go under.
How about under quality of life, call it promote quality residential environment? Does that cover?
Sounds good to me. And, you know, to add this in there, especially with us getting a new PEG channel, you know, we definitely need to promote that PEG channel and maybe share on PEG channel why it's so great to live in Rockingham County. Because it is a great place to live, raise a family, so.
And to take it another step is to encourage young people maybe wanting to start a new business or whatever.
Right.
Make a good environment for startups and people that may want to build on your livability in the rivers and outdoors. I never thought I'd see anybody on the Cape Fear. Now, if you cross the bridge in Lillington where I live, or that area, it's covered
Right.
on the south.
Yeah,
And that means money, outfitters, people. So
Right.
helping foster new startups can be a part of economic development.
Well, let's move on then. We'll have a vote on all of them collectively, so.
I don't see anything else that needs to be removed. It's pretty broad.
Yeah, the rest of these are fairly broad. We have some updates on some of these, but a lot of these goals are on the verge of being accomplished, but we'll get to that when we get to the project review.
I've just got to have one thing, looking at this education, which I think is great. I don't see any mention of, you know, some of the charter schools that are in the county. I mean, I know they're not public education per se, but
It is
the county
public
still
education.
needs to promote that education opportunity. And private schools we have here too.
You could definitely add that as a bullet underneath you have promote all educational opportunities in the county. You could add, it has primary education opportunities. I don't know if that's what we're trying to capture, but we just say charter schools and
I
private
mean,
schools.
yeah, you could almost steal the resolution we passed, doesn't it? Continue to support,
All forms of education, charter,
Yeah.
private, public.
Because I don't know about here, but a lot of counties, your homeschoolers are bigger.
Yeah, homeschoolers too. Well,
Outside.
they got it set up now, and a lot of these homeschoolers can go online and
So if
they
you have an active program locally, then.
I would just call it school of choice, continue to.
all opportunities, school
Well,
choice, yeah.
let me ask you, what if it's a primary education opportunities or promote primary education opportunity choices?
Choices. That'll be fine with me.
Just modify that one bullet.
Okay.
And I would also, Mr. Chair, there's a couple of things around just cleaning up the document. Some of them says create. If we've created it, it may be change the verbiage to continue to, you know what I'm saying?
Like the littering campaign.
Yeah, that's just,
Yeah.
but there may be a couple more that I've overlooked, but any of the, just clean the document up a little bit. If it's done been created, let's just continue.
Staff have done a lot
I
of
would
work on that.
suggest we put Paul in charge of wordsmanship.
I'm happy to.
Getting away from playing solitaire.
Other
Chair, you
point,
want a motion on that?
I do.
Well, I'd make a motion that we accept the vision, mission, and strategic focus areas as amended with the changes as directed.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Is everyone clear what this includes? Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed by nay.
I'm glad I got y'all to do that.
I'll clean this up and send it out to everybody.
All right.
Return your project updates.
Do you want to do the project updates, or do you want to move on to talk about water policy? Because we're limited time, and I think Commissioner Berger had some good suggestions on the water policy.
And I told him out for 2.5 hours, so you're gonna leave at 11.
I have to leave.
Yeah. Well, let's get that out of the way.
Okay, Ron?
Thank you.
Yeah, this is gonna be good.
This is the continuation of the meeting from Tuesday night. Gentlemen, back in the fall, I had brought to you some changes to the water and sewer policy that you all had requested. And at that meeting, you had some more ideas of some changes to that, and also having a way to view it without having to look at them side by side. So I put it in a track change, Word document in track change, so you could see what changes had been made along with the original language of the document. I know after speaking with Commissioner Berger Tuesday night, he had some more suggestions for this. And Commissioner Berger, I went through and tried to put in your changes. I talked with John about it yesterday as well. There are a few, I'm having a little bit of a challenging time reading your writing.
Not surprised.
But I tried to get the ones that we could read and get them incorporated. And so I'll be glad to, if you have any questions about that or specific concerns, I'll be glad to try to answer those, or if you have suggestions for changes.
Yeah, I'll just kind of hit on a few things, and you've got the same issue my secretaries have in interpreting what I put down on paper. The one added definition for business day.
Right, I've got that.
I think that's any day that the county government is open and operating. That would allow, and all this will hopefully make a little bit more sense once we get a little bit deeper into the document, but that'll allow if there's a snow day canceled for some sort of weather event or a holiday.
So I went into the dictionary online, and I have Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 local time, and excluding weekends and public
I don't know
holidays.
that we need to necessarily put that in the document, though. I think we just need to put any day county government is open and operating.
Okay, all right.
Because if you put Monday through Friday, then if you have a snow day, then that's counting as a business day. So we don't need to further define it.
Okay.
Date and times?
Well, I mean, I think
business
that's
day.
elsewhere in
itself.
county policy as far as when we're open. And then it would take care of it if we are canceled for,
Yeah, that speaks for itself. doesn't it?
yeah, I mean, for some other reason. Then we've got to change the definition of mailed.
You had, I think,
Deposit with
Yes.
United States Postal Service or other delivery service. I think the definition that's on there is, it says deliver. And that can change as far as the dates and whether or not somebody picks something up. And so
yeah, I got
the language I'm using here is what they use, Rule 4 of Civil Procedure with court system. So,
Okay.
or it's very similar to it.
Yeah, I had the first part, I couldn't read the second part of that.
Right.
Okay.
Then we told John to check whether or not we need to define adjacent, because there's some language in here talking about property that's adjacent to the water line.
Right. And can I ask a specific question about that?
Sure.
Okay, so what I think you're looking at there, and I need some guidance from you as a board to what you want to consider as adjacent. And to me,
Well,
it's adjoining.
Well, that's what I'm getting at with the
Right.
definition itself, because I know when dealing with zoning or something to that effect, adjacent would be considered anything that touches, and a road does not interfere with being adjacent. So don't know if we need to define adjacent or not, but it's that's something that I think John can check on, whether we need to define adjacent.
All right.
Whether some man-made right-of-way would interfere in some way, or would that also be considered adjacent? So they may have to drill under a road or under something else, but, and I don't know.
Is there a precedent in other counties or other water systems?
I have not checked. I've only seen this asked for an oversized line one time since I've been here, and it was a project that happened before I got here. We had asked, when we had the reimbursement policy, we'd asked the developer to oversize the line for future growth, and we compensated him for doing that. But that is the only time I've seen that happen. So I don't know that we would necessarily ask somebody to do that, but
You need it?
I'm sure there would be a possibility at some point you would need it, but we haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in any of the projects we've done since I've been here. And I think my question is, how far out do you want to go from that being adjacent? Because you could extend, oversize the line to serve further out than what you would typically think is the adjacent property. Does that make sense?
I mean, adjacent means touching.
Right.
And I think our obligation is just to the edge of the property. So if the line touches the edge of the property, then I think that would take care of itself.
Okay.
I'm happy to look into that, Mr. Berger, about
Okay.
more clearly defining adjacent.
Just
Yeah.
for clarity, what if the property's on the other side of the road? Would that still be considered adjacent?
Well, that's what we're getting at, and we may need to make a policy decision on that, whether we want the owner, because part of this policy indicates that if you're adjacent to the water line, you have to tap in with any new construction. So do we want to include folks that are on the other side of the road from the water line, where they'd have to drill under the road and the cost associated with that? On our side, we've got to have customers. We're losing a fortune every year. So we also, with that line, certainly if you have commercial development, you've got to think about those folks tapping in compared to the arguments that we hear as far as water tables, water usage, what's happening to my water pressure, as far as from the county residents. So that's what I want John to check on, as far as what others are doing, what's the proper way to define that, and then we as a board can make a decision as to what we want to require.
Is it included in this other folks? I would suggest is Dan River Water Authority. What do they do?
Have to check and see. I don't think you're required, for Dan River, since it's a private, you're not required to tap into them.
My concern is when we sit talking about defining the term adjacent, if we talk about across the road, some of those roads are a little bit wider than others and have medians.
Well, and that's where you can say that 2-lane roads, 4-lane roads. I mean, you can certainly define that term, but we may need more information to really delve into it.
And it's something more acceptable in the context of this policy. And I'm happy to look at other counties and municipalities, see if they find
I would be content with looking at some other counties and see how they're addressing this issue with their water policy.
I suggest we address it after Councilor Moore explains this morning.
Yeah, as far as that part. Then
That's a great point, Ted.
owner, I think that just has to be changed. Person or entity holding legal title to the service premises. It's not always a person.
I changed it to or organization.
Okay.
That's
All right.
from the dictionary.
All right.
So,
And then probably need a definition for tenant, because we've got some parts of the policy that address notice to tenants, tenants being able to sign up for water service.
A person who occupies land or property from a landlord, per the dictionary.
Or entity.
Person or entity.
Yes.
All right.
I flip over to page 6, section 15A. Instead of subsection F, just put 14A.
Yes, sir.
On the second line, you can then eliminate subsection F. It just regurgitates 14A.
Right.
It's in the second line of that first paragraph under section 15. Then there's some time, well, first in number 2, let's see.
I think you'd asked to change that to 10 business days.
Well, as far as the time the customer has to appeal, before we get to that next one, number 2, we're giving the customer 15 days to appeal, and this is a disconnection or termination of service notice. Maybe what we need to do is shorten that, if we can, to 10 business days, which would give 2 weeks.
Sure.
Which, that way, we're consistent with what we're talking about as far as days. Let's see.
That's not wrong.
Well, see, the problem is you got the next one in number 3, it says within 30 days. Is
Well,
that
that
30
needs to
calendar
be-
days
Yeah,
or
we
business
changed that
days?
one too.
That needs to be 10 business
Yeah,
days.
30 business
or
days?
fewer.
20 business days.
We've changed that. I think Commissioner Berger had asked that would be changed to 10 business days as
Yeah,
well.
and that's ultimately 2 weeks, and that's the time for Lance or the manager to, or his designee to conduct a hearing. And that's ample time.
Within 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, that's, also, I would take the very last one, which is number 7, and make that number 3. Way it's a little bit more in order.
Okay.
Make 3 number 4, 4 5, 5 6, and then 6 number 7. And number 7, I would think he could just mail, it doesn't have to be certified, whatever his decision is. But whatever the board wants, and I'd already marked out, I think it said within 15 days. He ought to be able to make a decision a little bit faster than 15 days. So I would, and this is a matter of getting the notice out. Is a week enough time?
Yeah.
Okay, so we just make that 5 business days.
Because after you hear the hearing, I mean, you'll make up your mind at that point.
Right, and then whoever's sending the stuff out.
Should take a day to send it out.
Yeah.
And I would remind all of us that we define the business days with the government is an operation, so.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That way, if we have, if we have a big snowstorm and we're closed for 3 or 4 days, then,
5 business days.
yeah, you've got ample time for folks to get that out.
Sorry to interrupt. Mr. Metzler had reviewed the appeal procedure, and you were fine with the language.
Yeah.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
I don't know that you may have done one since I've been here, but it
Yeah, I've
was
been here 8 years
not
and did like one appeal. It's not often you do it.
Yeah.
Of course, we're obligated to continue to service the customer until that appeal period expires. Commissioner Purtle asked about whether or not we can have a deposit requirement. I don't know if we can when you're dealing with water service. I really don't. I mean, if you could check on that, then we could.
I had made a note of that.
Are you talking about when they get their tap, their original tap?
No, if they appeal. I don't
Okay.
know.
If it's
Appeal
an
the
unabated
notice.
issue, an appeal, all that does is extend the period of non-pay.
Yes. Yeah, which is the other reason you want to shorten all this time frame in here. B talks about giving notice to folks that are not your customers. that would be situations where a landlord is obligated to pay the bill on behalf of the tenant. I don't know that we're obligated to give notice from a legal standpoint to those that are not your customer. The question is whether or not we want to have any language in here that places an obligation on us to give that notice. You can certainly do it if you want to, but
I think we would do it in the event we were getting ready to cut somebody off, so that if you were living in the house that you were renting, and the landlord didn't pay it, and we were getting ready to turn the water off, there might be some need, you know, if you had a small child or an older individual living there or something where they needed water.
Craig, you have a point?
I just got a question, Kevin. You studied it. Is there anything in the contract to give the manager discretion with water turn off or water?
well, they've always got discretion as to how long to go. This is a matter of.
Well, I'm talking about,
Appeal process.
we're an elderly community. Some elderly have to decide whether they're gonna pay for their medicine or have their water bill. I'm just hoping the manager has some discretion to say, okay, we'll
We
work
work
with
with
you.
people all the time.
Okay, that's why, I didn't know if we needed something like that in this to let,
No, I think if we put something in here, it becomes the rules he has to operate by, and he loses that
okay,
discretion.
okay.
Yeah, you're bound to that.
That's why I wanted to check.
I guess one issue with the entirety of paragraph B, the situations that Ronnie's talking about as far as a tenant, they change, and so how do you get that information and keep it current? I don't know that the landlord, who is your customer, has any obligation to tell you who's in the house. Most of the time, your customer is the tenant.
Well, what we do is, before we cut anybody's water off, we take door hangers out to those mostly it's residents. And we leave a door hanger saying, here, we're getting ready to cut your water off for this reason. And typically, it's for not paying your bill.
Contact us.
And here's your balance. And here's the date we're gonna cut it off. And that's what we do, because we find that door hangers really get immediate responses.
So you're gonna hang it on the door and mail to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then, I mean, I've got no issue whatsoever with that being the policy. As far as how you're operating, I just don't know that we need something in writing creating an obligation on the
Okay.
government to do something to someone or an entity that is not our customer.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay.
You also have to think about the resources that we use to do that.
Right.
So you want to remove paragraph B and the...
Everything under it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we're notifying our customer. You can still hang the notice on the door. And then you'll still get the phone call from whoever's there.
Okay.
And of course, if they come pay it, then great.
Yeah, typically door hangers get responses. So,
Then, page 8, I talked a little bit the other day with Ronnie and Lance about this. Our goal is to get customers and eliminate, or at least put a big dent in the huge deficit we have in this fund. In the very first sentence, private use of water from fire hydrants is prohibited. And then it talks about how to connect. I think, and this, so everybody understands, this is a matter of obtaining permits. Contractors getting permits to tap on, we send somebody out, they put a meter on the fire hydrant, and the very first thing in here says it's prohibited. Well, if they're coming to us asking for a permit, we want them to be able to sign on. And we need, we need them to sign on, and then we need to bill them and collect that money. The other part in here is, it says they can lease it for up to 6 months. We go read the meter whenever we pick the meter up. I think we need, if they're gonna have it for 6 months, we need to read it within that period of time, not at the very end of it.
Yeah, and I've made an insert in here after speaking with hydrant meters will be read on a bi-weekly basis or once the meter is removed.
Yeah.
I think
Twice a week.
bi-monthly mean every month, every other month.
Twice a month. I mean, every 2 months, we read them, right?
Well, for a hydrant meter, I think what Kevin was requesting was that we read it more frequently due
I do
to.
it once a month, maybe.
Okay.
Once a month?
Once a
Okay.
month, I think's
All right.
fine, because they're using large volume, and we want them to
Let me
pay.
ask you this, is there any way to make sure they don't bypass that? Because that's the reports I've been getting, is contractors bypassing the meter and not paying for everything they use.
And I think if we've got an obligation or a requirement that they obtain a permit, if they're not obtaining the permit, then
We got 'em,
they're
yeah.
violating the ordinance.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I know we go out there and put the meter in, but they've been taking that
But you're
meter
right,
off.
I'm telling you,
Yeah.
water is stolen on a regular
Well, it's on a
basis.
regular basis. So I know they make a mechanism that you can put on that hydrant that locks it in where they can't take it off.
Yeah, but then you run the risk of with fire, if you need the fire department out there, you have to be mindful of that, so. Commissioner Burke, can I go back to private use of water? I think and this is from the original policy, I think the intent of this was that private people at their private residence would not have use to a hydrant. And for things like going out there and say they decide to hook onto it to fill their pool or irrigate or whatever they're gonna do. And the reason for that is we don't want them stealing water, and we don't want somebody who is not familiar with operating hydrants, cranking those things open, and we get water hammer and get the line break. So that's why I think was the intent of this. Now,
Right.
we need to reword it.
I think if we're requiring a permit, then those that do not obtain the permit are violating the ordinance.
Okay,
And so I'm fine with you then crafting some sort of permit process.
okay,
And these are the criteria to obtain a permit.
all right,
If they don't meet the criteria, then the permit is denied.
okay, all right.
And so then, somewhere in here, we can have a provision as far as someone violating the policy and being able to punish them civilly and criminally for violating the ordinance.
That's indeed.
That's
Okay,
wrong.
I just,
Yes,
that's
sir.
right.
Provisional fraud.
Yeah,
We've had that happen several times.
we have that happen quite often. And we either, typically we'll have somebody call us and say, do you know somebody's hooked to your hydrant, or our guys will see it when they're out running their routes.
Maybe that's something we can work with our fire departments too, to keep eye out on new construction around the area. Maybe just look,
Yeah.
just send them a note and
Yeah.
ask them to help us out.
You've got something that sets up a fee as far as the permit application process.
Mhm.
And then, is there a deposit that they have to make it?
Yeah, there's a
Okay.
deposit for the meter and the connection to the meter. And
Okay.
so what our guys would do is they would take that device out there, attach it to the hydrant, make an initial reading, then go back and read it when they're done or monthly. And they're billed accordingly for the water usage.
But the contractor can take that meter off anytime they want and get water and put it back on and nobody knows.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why we gotta look at a way to lock it on there.
Yeah.
It might cost more than.
Then
It might cost more than what it's worth.
Okay.
on page 12 at the top, billing for water service is done every 2 months. I think we just need to add, unless otherwise provided herein, that would allow you to read the fire hydrants monthly.
Okay.
And then the real stuff that we need a lot of discussion on, I think, is starting on page 20, which is the water main extensions. To see what
You got the copies that I sent you?
yes, sir. I think I can't remember what county it was in the city of Eden as
David.
well. And so the question for the board is, what policy do we want to adopt for extending water lines for development?
And just to give you an example, some places like Davie County, Davie's like, the developer, you're gonna put 100% and we're not gonna do anything, you do it. Then you got some, I think in Eden, that was residential, they're willing to do 50% contribution from the city as long as the developer does 50%. So it just depends on how the board wants to address it as far as how you want to address the development and government getting involved with that activity.
And do you want it to, how in-depth do you want the policy that is adopted? You want it to come to the board every time? If we do make a decision to have any involvement, or do you want to adopt a policy that you can just kind of check boxes? Eden has pretty good policy as far as what they look into before they get involved. I don't know what else is out there. That's something that may take some more research.
And Lance had asked me yesterday to reach out to the other municipalities, and I did. I'm just waiting to hear back from them for what they do in those cases as well.
Certainly, if we adopt a policy to get involved in extending water lines, and of course, we're not talking about inside of a piece of property, we're talking about to the edge of a piece of property. I don't know of any government entity that goes beyond that.
Are you talking about like county providing the tap and
No.
then the residents pay for everything else?
No, what I'm talking about is there's a, let's just say a subdivision a quarter of a mile off of one of our main lines.
And they want to hook up to ours?
They want to hook up. Do we pay to run that quarter of a mile? And of course, to get it to the edge of their property? Or do we have some sort of formula where we partially pay and the developer pays to run some of it?
What's your
Or-
recommendation?
Well, or do we have something where if you want to tap into our line, you've got to pay to run it? And if that's the case, what obligation do they have? I know of instances where government says, okay, you're a half mile down the road. Well, in our mind, we would be better served if you put an 8-inch line in, but what they're trying to do only requires a 2-inch line or a 4-inch line. Which I don't think is right for the government to say you have to put an 8-inch line in if you only need this and you're paying for it.
Well, that brings up a good point, because out there on 220, we got a lot of subdivisions off of 220 popping up, and the contractors want to hook up water lines.
Right, and that's,
We need it.
And
Well-
we need them to, yeah.
and we need them to because we're losing our rear ends in our water budget. And then you also have the customer, or not customers, but the citizens that are showing up saying that their water pressure's the issue. Right, so, and I have no idea what the pressure is and what the impact is for each of those developments. I mean, there are folks that do that for a living.
Can I address one thing you just spoke to, the
Yes.
size of the water line? If the intent is for that water line to be installed into a subdivision and we take it over, it has to be a minimum of 6 inches. That is a state requirement.
Okay.
So,
Is that it?
and that is for fire protection.
That was my next question.
Yeah, so,
Also,
yeah.
clarification.
Well,
If you're going to hook onto our line,
Sure, that's what
we take it over. I don't think you would want somebody hooking to our line and us not taking over that line. because you got meters in there that we would have to read all of those things. Now, the only option you would have is if you had a master meter at the start of a subdivision and I guess the owner of the subdivision paid for it, or homeowners association or something like that. But if it's run into a subdivision and, or a commercial property, whatever it is like that, corporate park, and we're providing that service, those lines, as far as I know, they become our lines.
Well, Mr. Berger and the rest of you convinced me that this is an important point and we need a policy. But I think at this point, we need some more expert advice and a suggested policy that covers all these factors like pipe diameter and who does what. And what if we turn this over to somebody else? You know, how would this, like Dan River, you know, how would that impact? We don't want a policy they lay on here that would interfere with what we're doing, developmental wise. So I'm suggesting, gentlemen, that
Table we get more information.
I hate to work table because we want you to go to work.
We need clear.
You're right, I think they do need some guidance. I mean, you've got a spectrum of possibilities there.
Something other than just an overall
And
policy.
this ain't
What sort of guidance
take
you
6
suggest?
months, because we got subdivision
We've got them
pop up real
right.
quick.
We've got them coming. We've got development that's taking place. The economy's strong. Next November will determine whether or not it stays strong. And the thing we've got to do, and I think what they're looking for is, you've got Davie County, they do nothing. If you want to tap onto our system, then you've got to run the extensions and we'll take it over.
Now, in some counties, they say we'll pay for a certain number of feet. After that is all on you.
Yeah, and I think that's where Ronnie, I had mentioned return on investment. What's our return? So we probably need some sort of guideline. You know, we don't want it to where we won't get our money back for 20 years or 30 years. Yeah, you don't want to do that. You also, we've got to encourage folks to tap on. And so I don't know if we need, and it's not in here, we need some teeth or some clawback. If we're putting money out there, a developer says, I'm going to develop 40 lots, and they only sell 3, and we've put all this money out there, what obligation do they have to pay us back if we're putting the money out? So that's where the discussion needs to go.
Right,
for them.
and the other thing is, if you're running water lines half a mile, surely we're gonna be passing houses along the way. So you want us to own that line to hook up to these houses they're passing.
Right,
If it's not a new development.
right.
That's right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think Commissioner Berger brings up some
Good points.
some great points that this board needs to consider in the policy. However, I think if we've got some feelers out there from what other municipalities or other municipalities and other counties are doing, I think that would help me make a decision better if I seen some of those examples. However, I think that one of the points that was mentioned here just a few minutes ago, this needs to be a priority because we do have some housing developments potential coming in on the western side, southwest side of the county. So I think we should consider allowing Ronnie to gather this information in a timely manner, get it back to us, and then this be the topic of be added to one of our upcoming meetings, or if we have to have a special meeting to address this issue, just this topic, do that. But I think it's going to be a lengthy discussion, and I think there's a lot to consider because when you're sitting there talking about the return on investment versus what state mandates to what we have potentially evolving in our county, there's a lot of consideration.
Would you be willing to do a work session before one of your commissioner meetings, say start at 4:30
Yeah.
or 4 o'clock to 6? And
Yeah.
But And I'm fine with that.
Well, I agree with the point. I believe we're all agreed with the point that you made. But also, based on what Commissioner Berger said, I think we need to put a time frame on it.
And that's my number one thing. I think this needs to be a priority. It needs to be as important as the budget is right this time of season. This right here is going to dictate.
It's on the top of the list right now.
We've already got a request in right now.
Commissioner Hall's got a comment.
Mr. Chair, I've got a question, and it may be suited for Lance or the manager, or maybe Commissioner Berger can answer it for us. Let's assume we adopt this policy as amended today, with the understanding that it's probably not perfect, and it probably needs to be amended in the near future. Would that not give us a framework now to work from as we then move ahead, and knowing that we have some folks trying to get developments done immediately? And then if we do that, what would prevent us from addressing this in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days to change at that time? Is there a requirement that we have to go so long between adopting the policy?
No, I mean, I think the concern I've got with the current request is we have zero clawback provisions that are in place. Now, I think, personal opinion, the current request, the guy's going to be successful, but I could be wrong. And if he's not, if that request is not successful, and we spend that 200 grand, we've got to have some ability to protect ourselves.
All right.
And so that's,
Which is evident by the situation we're in right now. It's no different.
Let Ronnie respond.
So, I know you're speaking to the ROI form that I had for the discussion. And the group that worked on it was me, Kerry, and Lee Cochran. And our intent all along with that was just to give you guys a high-level snapshot of a particular project, with knowing in mind that if you said yes, move forward with it, we would work with John, Lee would work with him, us to craft an incentive agreement that would include clawbacks of that nature, similar to what Lee does with incentive programs for new businesses or things like that.
Okay.
Now, I know that probably doesn't quite answer maybe the policy, having a strict policy on it, but our intent was never to provide this and without then, if you okayed it, moving on to working on an incentive agreement that you all would approve for a subdivision of that nature.
so.
Well, let me continue, if you don't mind.
Sorry.
We're talking about clawbacks. All right, if we put this in the ground with whatever agreement that we agreed to today, and let's assume developer A that we're talking about today is not successful, we still own the water line. The taxpayers still own it. As another development comes in play, somewhere between this development and, let's say, 220, then another developer B could come in and they would take advantage of that opportunity. Yes. So it's there. So it's probably not going to be a lost cause, although it may take us a little bit longer to recover that money. So I guess my feelings are, let's go ahead and get a policy in place now, even if it's not perfect. Let's go ahead and see what we can move ahead with then. And then as we need to change it and adapt it, at least we're changing the policy then for future. In other words, set the framework for what we're going to do, and then until we change it, that's the plan we work from.
Yeah, I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying, and I've got no problem with if we instruct staff on any individual projects now moving forward. I think if he's intending to bring back some clawback, what I'm not comfortable with is staff then creating the clawback provisions without us seeing it without us approving
I
it.
agree 100%.
And
And again, Clark.
Again, our intent was never to do that without y'all's approval. And we sort of viewed this as a case-by-case basis where you all would see the return on investment form, instruct staff to proceed or not proceed based on that, work with the attorney on getting the incentive package for you to approve before we did anything. No, it was.
Kevin's right in that I think we've got to have that framework of a policy
Yeah.
so that we can ensure that we treat everybody fairly.
Okay.
That's my feeling.
All
But,
right.
so what I'm understanding, you're showing us these numbers, and you then would come back to us as far as, this is what we want to see if you'll approve as an agreement. So with that, I mean, I'm comfortable instructing him to move forward on that project that's out there now, with the caveat that you bring it back to us for approval,
Certainly.
which so that we're not obligated on anything. And in the meantime, we work towards a formal policy, if that makes sense. I mean, just, that would apply to everything. I mean, because we do want customers.
Right.
We're talking about a subdivision that's 40 or 50 homes.
No, it's 24.
24 homes,
Yes,
but the
sir,
return on
24.
investment was 7 years.
7.75 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's long enough.
Yeah, I mean, that's long enough. And then as folks come in the future, we would have staff be able to tell the developer, they're willing to do this, and we put the framework where if it's beyond this number of years, we won't even consider it, so that the developer would know. I mean, he's 3 miles down the road, it would take this long to get it back.
When I was in Montgomery County, we looked at water lines. We had a huge water system there, 6 million gallon per day system. And so what we looked at the rate of return was anything 10 years or longer, no good. Anything 10 years or less was a good investment.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. And the other thing, we've got to have some discretion, because if this boom continues and we end up with too many requests, then we've got a big problem. We're all of a sudden putting in lines left and right, and that budget, instead of 1 penny, it's 4 pennies, and at least for a year.
Yeah.
I mean, it can create a problem, so.
And I would, as part of this form too, we were also trying to show you guys the property tax value, just as an aside to, because sometimes return on investment may not be the best indicator, because there's another example we could provide for you where the return is closer to 15 or 17 years, but that particular project and ones that you guys are aware of that are coming, possibly piggybacking on that, probably makes that project just as attractive as the first one.
But you're gonna bring those back to us anyhow, right?
Yes, but the return on investment is outside of the frames of what Lance talked about.
On the
But I
enterprise
think-
side.
Yeah, and so that was what we were trying to do with that form, because there's a section on there for comments from staff where Lee would comment about the economic development potential for these things, the potential property tax value, those things. We wanted you to have that as a snapshot to be able to consider everything. Because I think that for us, we just didn't want to feel like we were spending staff time on something the board did not want us literally spending time on. So,
And just, I know Craig had to run out for a second. We're talking about this return on investment form. Ronnie said that he had that to get some guidance, but would bring something back to us before anything final was done. So for this particular request that's been submitted, I'd make a motion to allow Ronnie to move forward with the caveat that he bring something back to us for final approval. So
Exactly.
you've got some guidance And of course, that would include any of the clawbacks, anything that needs to be in there. So it just gives you some guidance to move forward.
All right.
Can
You can get it back on the 17th,
And,
right?
yeah, when can you have it back to us?
This particular project or the policy as a whole?
Both.
Both.
Well, I think you got to bring us suggestions on the policy as a
Right,
whole.
yeah,
or-
yeah.
Or
I-
what else is
certainly
out there?
At the second meeting in February.
For both?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'll make it, you guys,
Recess.
Commissioner Pearl, I think, looked at me directly and said, make it a priority. I will certainly do that, yeah.
And I'll say this too before we vote. I hope that when we do this, when we get this policy in place, that it is, bureaucracy and such that it's not user-friendly to those contractors when we do it. I don't use this term, I'll be a Philadelphia lawyer to figure out what's gonna be needed or Madison lawyer. And what's gonna be needed in order to apply for a subdivision permit.
Right.
And figure.
And I think Commissioner Berger, a lot of his comments address those things specifically to tweak the policy to make it Madison.
All right,
Madison
all right.
lawyer.
Guys, I think we got the gist out there.
Okay.
And I've got a motion here and, Brad, one
Just a
question.
quick question. In the meantime, can we request that any new subdivision that requests water, it has to come before us before?
I think they have to do that already, right?
I'm sorry.
Any new subdivisions have to come before us right now?
Yeah.
For any new development?
They come to Kerry as part of the review, the planning
Well,
review process.
But he's asking, specifically for this topic, any water line extensions before anything were to take place, it
Right.
had
Yes.
to come to us.
Right, that's what I'm
Yeah,
asking.
we would never do this without board approval.
Yeah, I'm good. I'll second his motion.
All right, I've got, just before you second it, if you would add a time criteria on that to include the second meeting in February.
Yes, that,
I'll second, I'll amend my second.
Does that include all the stuff because that's just for that project itself. What about the water policy? Is that gonna be a separate?
We approve that.
that's part of, yes.
What's
all
coming
right,
back to
so-
That's part of what-
Yes, sir.
Okay.
He's,
Yeah,
he's
Everything else that
promising-
he's spoken about.
Well, I'm promising, if I can get all the information, I will do my very best. I'll do my absolute best.
Okay, so on the second meeting, we're gonna hear these other suggestions
They might have it back.
and modifications as
February
well.
It's a change.
He'll do his best.
If you're gonna do your best, you got February 3rd.
Let's see, I would have had
I'm
to
just
have gotten it on
joking.
the agenda Wednesday, I'm sorry, that's against the rules.
So we can definitely make a reset. Yeah, we
Oh.
got to from the 3rd.
Oh, we're gonna have
Can I
an agenda
ask
meeting
one
after
thing?
this one now.
Can I ask one quick thing? Commissioner Berger has several comments, and I hope everyone's okay if I reach out to him on some of these handwriting issues and make
Yes.
sure I can include those.
No problem.
Okay.
All right.
If you can reach it.
If you can read out, and since that's kind of a caveat, I'm gonna address this right now. We have a policy where commissioners don't go directly to department heads and give
Right.
tasking. That does not preclude commissioners asking questions that don't require additional time. And also, this is an appropriate time to mention, when Lance is not around, Paul, it's you. You're our filter.
Yeah,
And,
and just stop playing solitaire. We'll get it.
so we're aware that he's gonna talk to you.
Okay, thank
And
you.
that's good. Motion on the table, been seconded. Further discussion. Emery, don't you want to jump in on this, man?
I'm just remembering why I retired.
Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed by nay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I realize that that was nebulous, and I personally, and I think the rest of us, thank you for dealing with the nugatory defect. By the way, clawback doesn't sound very professional. Can we call it compensation or something?
We'll
like
we'll
that?
find an appropriate term for it. Yes.
Sorry, that's the Madison lawyer thing.
I'll consult the Philadelphia lawyers and see how they talk about it.
All right. I would mention, Emery, drawing on your experience as a county manager or as part of this retreat function, you're welcome to speak. If you got a suggestion, it's more better.
Since Kevin needs to leave, you want Ronnie Case to go ahead and give him his spiel?
No, you go ahead and tell me what's next.
Would it be okay to take a quick 5-minute break? And I just want to say to the commissioners, I appreciate you giving us clear direction on this. It really means a lot.
All right, we're going to reconvene at 9:30. How many more applicable department heads do we have, Mr. Manager?
We've got a few significant project updates, and I'm going to ask that Paul and Derek started off with the pay channel discussion.
Hey, Lance, make sure we're writing it down so Kevin can get that information first. Because I want Kevin to hear what we're writing it up, so.
Well, I may include him up there. Yeah, okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay. So in your packet, the pay channel is going to be your last staple thing. It's these update sheets, and just a reminder, we pulled these directly off of that website that I shared a little while back, but you commissioners have access to see these anytime you want to. I know Commissioner Hall will frequently email us and say, hey, you need to make sure they update this, and that's awesome. So, as we've talked about in the past, commissioners have wanted us to pursue getting a PEG channel. We're making significant strides on that. That's our plan right now, unless we run into any speed bumps, is to launch that PEG channel February the 3rd, which is right around the corner.
You're going to have a Board of Commissioner meeting that night.
And we have a Board of Commissioners meeting that
That's
night.
going to be a good meeting there.
We're doing that because you have to have the channel in place and meeting all the criteria for 90 days at least before you can apply for funding. So this gives us about a 2-month buffer in there if something could go wrong. I'll turn it over to Derek right now just to kind of go through what we've done on the IT side as far as PEG channel, and then I can update you on content. So.
Okay, we've established a test with Spectrum to make sure we're delivering the signal. We're also currently right now sending those videos that Mabel and Roy have made to make sure the signal's going through. We're in the process of working out the schedule to get that online. Once next week, we will work out and have a full schedule ready for that February 3rd launch. On the February 3rd launch, we're trying to do a soft launch just to get it going, to know how our transitions work, make sure all of our videos are displayed the way they're supposed to, and then we will roll out an advertising campaign later once everything is worked through the first cycle. The schedules now will be set out for a 1 week and then repeat that same week, the second week, and then we will update the content.
What channel is it on Spectrum?
We do not have that channel.
And just as a kind of reminder, I'm very proud of the staff that have been working on this. We're doing this with existing staff. We haven't hired anybody to do this. I know IT, this isn't something they've ever done before, so they're taking this on. Everybody's doing a great job, so please bear with us at least for the first couple of weeks as we make sure all the kinks are worked out. But and Mabel has done a great job of going and getting content for this channel. I know she's done 411 videos with all the commissioners now, and we have plenty of content to put out there. Our plan that we've talked about is to come up with a schedule that is 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and to repeat that 12 hours at night. And have different slots for governmental meetings, whether it's commissioner meetings or town meetings or stuff like that. Like this, I think the 6 o'clock slot would be that so citizens can see it. And then we would refresh all the content every 2 weeks.
I guess you didn't have that conversation with all the municipalities, and
We're going to meet with the municipalities and talk with them. I've talked to a few of them. So you've got the ones that have Roy taping them now. They're fine with us putting them on. The other 3 that don't, we're going to be working with them because there's potential that we can get funding for them to tape, and if they can do that, and no charge for them. Their problem is the lack of money that's going to matter to me.
Quick question, Paul. I know you interviewed the commissioners, but you got any plans to like interview the registered deeds so the registered deeds can tell the citizens what's available in registered deeds, or interview the sheriff, let them know what's going on in the county, inmate litter program, all the stuff that's going on in the county?
Absolutely. I don't think Mabel's in here for, oh, yes, she is. Hey, Mabel. There's already a time slot for, I know, the sheriff, and that right, he has like a program that he does for 30 minutes, I believe, if I'm right. We can definitely do that with registered deeds if we haven't done it
Yeah,
yet. Absolutely, and all department heads. And that's kind of the idea, is we'll have some things that are more seasonal, some things that aren't. Things you learn. So we have, you have programs that don't end exactly on 30 minutes, so we're gonna have filler content, but that filler content will be available jobs that we have here at the county. It'll be community events that are going on, so it'll be a great way to get that stuff out, outside of just the program.
What's the plans to get the information to the citizens and tell them what channel to go look at?
So, oh, go ahead, Eric.
So that part, Mabel will work on a marketing campaign once we've established, a few weeks of testing it out. Mabel will be marketing that out, letting people know.
Can't tell, I'm excited about this big channel, so.
Are we going to coordinate with RCC to ensure that we don't duplicate any type of programs and that we complement each other?
We've been talking to them. I know Mabel just sent another email this week. Actually, in order to make sure that we both get funding, there's a requirement that no more than 15% of your content is repeated on another peg channel. So we have to make sure that we have enough separation there. And I know we've met with who does their peg channel over there, and Mabel, I'm blanking, who's the? Jerry Hunt over there as well. So yeah, we're all on the same page.
Other questions?
Mabel, is there anything you want to add? Okay.
No other. A question for you, Derek, while you're here. The commissioners heard an audit report a couple days ago. One aspect falls into your department regarding how you were guarding against inappropriate access to information. Are you comfortable with the resolution from the IT side of the house?
Our resolution, yeah, I'm comfortable with the resolution from our side. It was a measure that we were already in process. We just hadn't rolled it out to all agencies. Actually, we just met with one of the agencies that are back here, rolling it out further. And then to step against that, we are having an additional upcoming National Guard audit to go through this, and double check it, starting first week.
The state auditor's smiling. Is that what I'm hearing? Good.
All right, since Derek's up here, electronic payments.
That's the second page that's in your sheet. Yeah, I'll turn that over to you.
So, as you know, this has been a long adventure. We went out and went through the process, selected our first vendor that said they were able to meet all our requirements for being able to accept the payments and handle the back-end transitions. Our first vendor did not work out, so we went with the second vendor in the process. We have now rolled it out to all of the departments except for the library that we intended to roll it out to. The library presented more challenges than we were ready to hit in this initial phase. We will be rolling back and working with them. We'll change some internal business processes to make sure we handle those payments securely. But as far as departments here, it is the register deeds, the sheriff's office, planning and inspection, public health, superintendent's office, landfill, I said one more, and tax was already accepted.
So have we, I know when we started accepting payments, we were not fully prepared. Do we now have policies in place for issuing permits, or they're recording documents, and they're paying by credit card, then they deny the charge? Or do we have any policies in place for folks that say that it's not my card? I think when we first started, policies were not in place as far as what's required before you accept a card. Is all that taken care of now?
Currently, right now, all of the departments are handling it the same way, yes. And some of those policies, we're overridden by what that Visa and MasterCard require. So we had some that said, we're not going to do that. If we're accepting it, we have to abide by their rules.
Well, except I think we can require identification
That's
or, okay, all right. So we've got all that adopted at this point. Okay.
So tentatively, when do you think the libraries may come on?
I do not have a time frame at this time. As part of what came from that audit with single sign-ons and things like that, there is a tremendous amount that needs to be addressed before we move forward. And we do not feel comfortable at this time, so we're going to work through that the upcoming year.
So just as a segue, We certainly appreciate, I know it's a long time coming for this, but I believe we leapfrogged a step that other counties have taken, and we're in a much better place. I think a lot of people rushed and got credit cards out without going through all the processes that we went through that you have to. Things that I had never thought about, like our phone system. There's certain, because it's internet-based, everything has to be secure. Otherwise, if we get hacked and somebody steals money, we're on the hook for it. Right now, because we're PCI compliant, our insurance will cover us if that happens. I mean, we've done it right. It took longer, but we've done it the right way. So I think we're in good shape, and it's helped us to uncover some financial things that we needed to address as well with how departments were handling money. So I think we're in better shape there as well.
Yeah, you got another case where the devil's in the details, and we appreciate you guys keeping up with that.
I just got a quick question for Derek. Derek, is it a need for the libraries to have credit cards? I mean, you're talking about minimum fees here. I mean, I don't
Is
think
there
nobody's
a-
going to spend $100 in there.
This is based upon my opinion and doing further research at other counties. Absolutely.
Okay.
I think there are staff efficiencies that we allow people to make their own payments and use a kiosk and that don't need interaction with a person. They can make their own payment and move on, and then those staff could be working with people that need help. So, yeah, those transactions will be small, but I think there's efficiencies there that will allow our staff to help people. So
More
yes.
efficiency, okay.
So that's why we say it's going to take longer, because there's going to be some internal processes that need to take.
Good, okay,
I have a question,
yes, sir.
and it's a side note. I know in the audit report that we was privileged to hear Tuesday night, there was some discussion about the IT. And, we've had the discussion before from an insurer's perspective about how we cover our finance director and the embodied. And I've asked the question before about the IT, because essentially the IT director, I'm thinking positions here, but I think of it in my mind's eye, used to, the finance office was the heartbeat of had the keys to the gate. And that's not, I don't see that as the case anymore, to be honest with you. It's the finance department. I mean, it's the IT department. The finance department operates real well without the IT department. We're getting away from the ledgers and the handwritten stuff, and it's all internet-based now. So I'm still wondering, is there any other entities that are addressing from the insurer's perspective of coverage on of our IT department?
Don't know, but we'll find out.
We do currently have cyber IT insurance. I don't know that it addresses what he's bringing up.
Yeah, I think.
And I say that because whenever I talk this, I've shared with Lance multiple times. I'm not talking about individuals. I'm talking about positions and coverage within the county and protecting itself.
I'll find out.
Thank you.
This wasn't part of the project list that we have, but just if you can talk about briefly, an update on the website upgrade.
Yes, sir. So on the website upgrade, we went out and reached out to all the vendors that are in the governmental market. 3 of those have given us demos and proposals. Through the process, we have learned a lot of new technologies that are out there, and some things we may need to change. And we are in the process right now of putting a contract forward for approval to do the website upgrade. And all of these projects look to be anywhere from the 4 to 6 month range to roll out our brand new website. Our goal with that website is not only to do our main county site, but is to do environmental health and public health and one other one depending on which vendor, and rolling out those sub-sites as a new branded site.
The team that has been reviewing this has been myself, Derek, and Lee Cochran, and I know we're certainly hopeful. I think we're all very passionate about it, but I'm certainly very passionate about this. This is the face that everybody sees that when you go to the website. And this is going to be a huge improvement once we get this done. So we're excited.
And just briefly, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to jump to another one if nobody had any
Well, I
questions.
was going to ask, since you brought up vendors, what's the policy do for vendors right now? If we have a project that goes on, like say a painting project, do we have a list of all vendor-approved painters, and we send out a letter to them, say, hey, we've got this project coming up, need a bid? Is that how you do it, or how's it work?
With us, with the county, as far as with maintenance, we have a list that we have compiled in,
Vendors, right?
of vendors, yeah, and if you want to put your name on that vending list, then we will choose from that vending list.
I mean, they can bid on projects in the county.
Yes.
They don't have to go through the state, they'll be on the state vendor list in order to bid.
No.
Okay.
Just to plug performance measures, that's actually a performance measure in finance, that
Right.
within 5 days of any RFP being released, that everybody on that vendor list is known.
Well, the
And they
reason I
usually
asked, I
do that
had
same
a
day.
couple, like plumbers and electricians in the county ask, hey, how can I get on your vendor list? So I just keep directing them to call you.
Get on the internet. They can sign up on the internet.
They can do it on the internet.
Or connect, purchasing agent in my office, Amanda Crawford, she maintains that list. So just reach out to them, and she puts out brochures and information regularly about how to become a vendor in Rockingham County. So just reach out there and they can become a vendor on that list, and departments look at that as far as getting quotes.
So contact her.
Mm-hmm.
What's her number?
Amanda Crawford. Amanda Crawford.
Yeah. Or you can go to the, like Lance mentioned, go onto the website, county website, under the purchasing part of the website, and there'll be information there for them to sign up.
Yeah, the entire purchasing vendor process is online, so they can do it online.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that one? Okay, just a brief update on broadband. I know we talked about trying to provide broadband to those areas that don't have that coverage. I know the county really doesn't want to be involved with it, but we're working with the companies that provide that within this area, and we'll have something to you all in the near future about our recommendation on how to proceed with that.
Next meeting.
Next meeting,
Should be on the next agenda.
February 3rd.
Oh, man.
Is there any questions about that? Okay, Derek, one more time, mobile field, the MPDs.
The MP, this is the project for the sheriff's department to put the electronic devices in their patrol cars. Correct?
Second from all the way.
You want to talk about it at all? Or you want me to do it? It has affected his department the most, but this project is fully completed, rolled out. It is to all intended 54 officers and mobile units, as we plan to start with. I think there has been tremendous staff acceptance. There was some resistance at first, but I think they've truly seen the benefit. It has created multiple efficiencies within the department and helped with 911 with reducing the amount of radio traffic. And I would say that it is actually rolled out much smoother than planned. And users, we get a very low callback rate over there.
That's a great thing, because I know the sheriff's happy about it. We've been working on that for a couple of years, haven't we, Sheriff? And
Yes, and I just want to thank the commissioners for your foresight and the IT staff, tremendous. Everybody worked together, and it's going to bring us a long way to get that data out to the cars. But thank y'all very much.
Mr. Purdy?
Yes, and as far as the hardware it takes for that, that major project, is there a capital improvement plan in place to start replacing the computers?
It is on my year 3 and 4 out to replace those computers, yes, sir.
We can talk about it now. We have a capital improvement plan already ready. We're excited to talk to the commissioners about it. We didn't think we'd have enough time because that could really open up a discussion, but talking with the manager, we might try to set something up before a meeting if you're available, or however to talk about it with you. But yeah, we have projects ready. We present that to y'all.
Thank you.
And we hope to have that adopted in the budget this year, the 5-year capital improvement plan.
Any other questions on that?
I think it's great.
That's very good.
Thank you, Derek.
One add in on the mobile food reporting, we're actually, what I would consider the second, third phase of it, we're actually made it down the line of staff efficiencies and actually looking at things that were never considered in the project to remove paper in the process. So currently today, the sheriff offers a service to go knock on doors when citizens are out of town or businesses need their businesses checked, and that's on paper. We're looking to add a module to make that electronic, so if a unit is nearby, they know that needs to be checked, they can check it. So, I mean, we're not only just using what we're doing, we're moving forward with that.
Thank you very much. Carrie? Next, central permitting renovation, Paul and Carrie. Let y'all tag team that one.
So
We're on that a while.
I'll turn this over to Carrie here in a minute, but this is something I'm very happy about. I know I probably got on everybody's nerves when we were doing this one to see it get done, but if y'all haven't been down to see the new central permitting and how everything's been redone down there, I encourage you to do it. Most of that was restructuring how our central permitting techs, when customers come in, how they interact with our techs. Also, making some separation between there and the inspectors, and that's not just for aesthetics, it's also helping us as we move to the e-track it, which is where developers will be able to see all their permits and pay for stuff online. So, okay, I'll turn it over.
It's been a really great collaborative project with Paul, myself, Ronnie, all the employees even. What you want to see, and it's made it really good. They have a more professional feel, I think. It's really helping with the morale down there, and the customers observe a very nicely laid out professional office.
And
I would say that, I'm glad to see this, because that was the biggest complaint we got from contractors. Now they can just log on and, request an inspection or something like that, and that would save them money, and in the long run, it would save our time. And it's kind of, it spreads it out where the inspectors know daily where they need to go. I think it's awesome.
When that's fully implemented, it will be. Yeah, we're pretty close to that.
That's great.
Any questions?
I've got a question for that. I know with central permitting, there are a lot of facets to this job, and we've had some staff turnover.
Yeah.
How is the training progressing? How can you address that for the board?
Yeah, I think one reason it's gone a little bit slow is because the department I felt wasn't well structured and was disorganized, and a lot of these projects started from a place of less organization, and so we've had to sort of I feel like I had to kind of recreate some things, some relationships within the department and between the departments. And that said, I think we've got people in the right places. We're getting the right new hires. That's a little bit win some, lose some. And I've just recently started to appreciate the help of an administrative assistant. Thank you. Part-time, temporary. That's going to take a lot of heat. And at any rate, yeah, I think we're doing much better. People are feeling more confident in this new software. That's helping with training.
Commissioner Hall, that was a part of the reason for the renovation. We just felt strongly that the way the space was laid out was creating stress in a worse work environment than needed to exist. So I hope it's helped in that regard. I just want to say we did it all with internal staff too. We didn't contract out hardly anything, and Ronnie's crew did a great job.
What was the end line? What was the budget?
So when we started this project, we had a budget, I think by the time we got to it, of around $58,000, and we did it for less than 15.
15.
That's awesome.
And we started with, isn't it 70 or 80 a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, when I say we started with a budget of 70 or 80, this was under a previous director who wanted it to be far more elaborate. That's not kind of our style now, so we did things like, there was a glass door up here, we repurposed that and moved it downstairs rather than buying a new one, that kind of thing. So we wanted to do it a lot cheaper than what was previously allocated. Put it that way.
I also feel like I want to say, because Pat has been really tolerant with my department, the audit finding that had to do with utilities was generated from the structuring, the staff organization in that department. And this, of course, those changes were made before the actual physical changes, but these physical changes further correct that deficiency in anything like that.
Is it on here? Because I got a question that's not. We talked to you sometime before, and this is a concern, particularly among contractors in the county, about our shortage of inspection personnel.
Yes.
And the suggestion was made at the time about collaborating with RCC in regards to growing our own inspector as a program where they would train inspectors. Do you have a status on that by any chance? First of all, some applicant, I hope, to be an inspector, and second, the collaboration with RCC.
I mean, the first thing that I think we've done internally to address that is to restructure that pay class. To incentivize the employee, because there's a natural progression of licensure within that profession.
Well, we're well aware of that.
Paul created a pay scale that would reward the potential applicant
Yeah,
candidate for that.
The board approved that, but
And the board-
to answer your question, RCC, I've talked with Dr. Kinlaw at our quarterly meetings, and he is looking into the possibility of doing that. And Commissioner Pearl and I had a conversation. I don't want to say too much about it, but I'll be meeting with the other managers. We have a manager meeting on the second week in February, and I'll be discussing some options with them as I've reached out to my counterparts across the state and have been very surprised at how they're approaching this. Well, there'll be something forthcoming with that.
Cool. Awesome.
And I'll look forward to Mark Langle at some point retiring and going to teach for RCC. That's my plan.
No, we don't want him
You
to
don't wanna
retire.
But not for a while. I mean, he's gonna wait a while, but ultimately, at some
2032.
point.
She said she was looking forward to him retiring. I'm like,
That's
what the
no,
hell?
that's, that came out wrong. Looking forward to it. At the time when he
Boy,
finally
can you
does
scratch
retire. Yeah,
Yeah, her throat,
if
my
he
throat
must.
constricted.
But he can help inform the program in the meantime.
That's
I think
right.
that
Cool.
Mr. Kinlaw's
Well,
open to
I
that.
brought up the question because there are a lot of people interested in it.
Yeah.
We're interested in the number of applicants. I really know the answers to some of these things, but that's important to us, that we're getting applicants, that we're growing our own, and
Yeah.
the general progress in that particular area. Plus, there are some other policies and programs like inspector sharing that some other counties do.
That'll be forthcoming.
Off the tapes.
Next would be the update on the land use plan at UDO.
Appreciate you putting them together.
Yes.
Okay, I can't help but go back to the initial discussions about demographic changes and trends, and appreciate this board for funding the update of a land use plan in order to address this evolving community. And the land use plan is on a parallel path, for instance, with water and sewer policy. Your consultant for the land use plan wants very much to sit down with you. When you do have a special meeting, he has expertise in water and sewer infrastructure and utilities expansion and planning, and would love to share his expertise. And the land use plan, for instance,
get him.
might have you lay out a tier 1, 2, and 3 growth areas. Here's where we want our water to go, and then you tell the people where to go based on a lot of very informed study, of course, with where public infrastructure, or where services are located, a heat map of services, transportation, regional job growth. We like people coming here to live because the land is cheaper, but it'd be really good for them to spend their money here too, and to enjoy activities. And we have this great natural resource of outdoor recreation, which can be serve our local population through programs and policies, as well as an economic opportunity. So the land use plan will address all of that. And I think this is the first time, I think, where that's really merging, Lance, where that's really coming together to have that consultant address the group.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Carrie, along those lines, do you reach out to the other planners when we're doing this UDO?
Yeah.
And see if there's similar concerns in other municipalities within the county
Yeah.
that we can all address, if we have similar concerns, that we can all address through our UDO.
Especially when they involve a regulation that affects us all the same, and the electronic gaming is an example of that.
I know we had a lot of success of that in the
Yeah.
long-term field. We shared policies and procedures that.
We keep it separate, I mean, they're two
It is
different
separate,
things.
but it's.
But we're already doing that, we're already revising those ordinances, for instance, together, and it's not only those municipalities and those things, but what their plans are for growth and what's going on in the greater region, which is why we have the growth in the first place, our place in the region.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
Hey, Lance, real quick, while you talked about outdoor activities, when was the last time we've gone to the access points on the rivers just to make sure everything's safe and everything looks good for us, citizens to come use it?
Robin keeps up with that. There's on Settle Bridge Road, they're gonna do that. I think they're working with Darba to totally revamp that one, because that's pretty dangerous over there.
Yeah.
So they're gonna put in the metal
Right.
thing to get down through there and clean that up quite a bit.
I didn't know if we were working with the cities too, with their access points, because, that's gonna be big. At me, as say if I'm an outsider from Guilford County, if I come there and everything looks nice and clean, I'm gonna tell people, yeah, y'all need to come to Rockham County, it's freaking awesome. So I'm hoping you sit down with the manager, and we talk about the outdoor activities to make sure everything looks real nice.
Ronnie, come up, you're up next with the water extension. You guys take care of the, we're contracting out for the our particular sites, right? The kayak sites, access points.
For the maintenance of them? Yes, sir.
Okay. But the one you're talking about, Settle Bridge, actually Darba's taking it upon themselves to get grant funding to fix that.
Well, we've got the sheriff here, I'd love to, when they got the time and don't have a road to clean up, I'd love to take the inmates out there to make sure it's all nice and clean around the access points of the rivers. Maybe work with the cities about doing the same thing, using our inmates to do it,
If there's anything new.
Make sense?
Yeah. Just briefly, update on phase 2 and 3 of the water line extensions.
Okay, so phase 2, which is from Sylvania Road, 65, across 220, back onto 65 again, and turning south on Price Mill Road. The contractor just started on Price Mill Road last week, I think. It's still on schedule, still progressing well. The free tap incentive program is done really, really good. We've gotten multiple inquiries, applications in place, capacity fees in place for taps. Contractor's gonna make them all at one time and do it. So it should, I would look for that line to be finished up probably in February. And Bill has already submitted to the state for certification of that line up to Collybrook. I know there was an issue with the Collybrook subdivision not having adequate water through their private well system. We're waiting state approval and certification of that line. We expect it at any time. Once we get that, it'll be operational for them to use.
Real quick, are we sending out like letters to the citizens there
About
the tapping?
We did door hangers.
Okay, do door hangers.
We went everywhere on that line. We dropped the door hanger off at every resident.
Good, great, okay.
So, phase 3, Bill has submitted it to the state for permitting. Lance had a form he signed this week to go with it. John worked with Bill on getting that form ready to get back to the state. It's sort of a preliminary MOU with Madison and Mayadan, how that line will be maintained and the operation of that part of that line. So we're just waiting, getting permitting back from the state.
Awesome.
And the water tanks.
Water tanks, Bill's working on water tank design. He's going to come back, I think, with 2 designs, spherical and one with legs like our other tanks, for you guys to look at and review and go at, have estimated cost, I'm sure, for that, for a water tank on the southern end of 220. Wastewater lines, he's also, I think he has submitted that to the state for approval for that wastewater line extension as well.
Any questions on that?
That's good, that's awesome. Roll on.
If not, we can get, you're okay, we'll skip the break since we had one earlier. If anybody needs one, but Next, we'll move on to Mark to give the tax-based trends. Mark, if you come up here.
Did you want a landfill update?
Do you guys want a landfill update? No.
No, but I have a question about landfill.
Okay, all right.
No, we can talk about that.
Rock and roll.
The whole board.
Okay.
Hold on.
Just one on the landfill, I know at our last budget meeting last year, the question came up about when we closed the sale and spent the money, there was, I think at the time, some talk about fees, and the question was, how long does it take? What's our projection before we have enough money for another sale closing and opening in the kitty? And at the time, I believe we were told those numbers had not been run, but we would get those to you. So this is a reminder to get us those numbers.
Okay.
Ronnie, I'll go ahead and ask my question now.
Yeah, I'm done.
I got a question from one of our citizens the other day about I guess the contractors hauling gravel in there. I think he should share with me several acres of gravel at a couple of feet deep, and that the gravel was coming down, coming from out of the county. Would you like to comment on that?
I'll be glad to. There's the new site's 11 acres. It's 2 feet thick of gravel in the bottom of it.
Can't sell it.
Huh?
Can't sell it.
No.
We're putting it in.
We had put it in as liner protection.
Okay.
So the quarry here in the county did not make that particular gravel, or they probably make it, but not in the quantities needed for this. And that's why the contractor, Shamrock, selected an out-of-county vendor for that. I think if the quarry up here would have had sufficient quantities or made it, they would have certainly used it, because the haul distance, you're looking at 4 miles or less versus probably 20 or 30 miles.
So they are, locally, we didn't even get a reply to our,
well, that would have been part of
the
Shamrock.
contractor.
That would have been up to Shamrock as the contractor. They priced that. We didn't price it as part of the RFP. But I asked about that, and that was the answer I got back from the contractor, is it was not locally available. So,
Question. Is this part of the base contract? This isn't, we're not paying a change order for out of contract?
no, this is part of that, yeah. No, this is all part of the original contract.
and I understand the concern this citizens have. We've had this conversation before of anytime we do county facilities to use local talent and local manufactured goods in it. We like, but anyway, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Martin. He's gonna talk about the tax-based trends.
City College, county line.
Thank you. During the break, I laid these in front of y'all, and I'm not going to go over every page, don't worry. What's attached at the back are stats comparing the 2019 information from the tax office to previous years, and we give this to you each year as a reference so you can look back, and then I can ask any questions on that. Yours is laying right there, sir. Sorry.
That's all right.
First, I'll start with real property. Attached are the stats for the building permits for several years. Our totals for main structures was up for 2018. Stick-built homes we watched particularly was 180 permits issued city and county. We had 185 in 2018, but there were 319 buildings, including townhouses, mobile homes, commercial, and industrial. We had 19 non-exempt commercial buildings constructed. We had 4 industrial constructed, and we had several upfits of existing buildings. Our deed and plat totals were up. We researched 3,716 deeds and plats in 2019. We researched 3,400 in 2018, so it was a 9% increase. Our sales ratios are attached going back several years so that you can see the trends of when the economy wasn't doing so good. These sales ratios are the comparison of the tax values to the sale prices. Since 2011, we've seen from 98.82% to a high of 105% when the economy wasn't doing good. This is based on random sales pulled by the state. It's the median sales ratio of all types of properties. Currently on our sales file, what we project the 2020 state sales ratio to be is 98.9%. On the 2016 sales we have right now that are qualified, the tax values are about 99% of the sales of the median. Our sales files data in our county is unlike some counties. It's inconsistent. The northern part of the county, the northwest part of the county acts totally different from the southwest part of the county, and that can make it a challenge. In 2019, we conducted a reappraisal of real property. That was 8 years from the previous reappraisal. We currently have 2 appeals to the Property Tax Commission. One is in the process of being settled. The other is the former Miller Coors property. Countywide, real property growth during the reappraisal was around 4%. One good thing is we had less appeals than any previous reappraisal. As indicated by the sales ratio, we're still seeing a small recovery. We just hope the momentum will increase and continue into the future. We do see that older, non-renovated structure values aren't growing, of course, like renovated structures, and also certain areas of the county, such as the northern area, doesn't grow in sales price as fast as the southwest and southern areas. In personal property, we hope that new industries that are coming in will offset some of the recent business personal loss we've lost in the last few years with closings. Business personal property can take large swings with additions and deletions of property. Most businesses do not fully list until April 15, so we don't have all of those values until then. We should have new listings of business personal property this year from Sanritsu, Planet Fitness, I hope I pronounced this right, Bavone, which bought the former Harley-Davidson building. We should see some new equipment from Allbad, and a company bought the assets of TMD WEC, which is a plastics industry that closed on Sands Road.
Can I stop you? Are they going to use those assets in the existing building, or are they moving them?
To our knowledge, they're using them and operating there.
Thank you.
As we have in previous years, there is an attachment which shows you previous years of business, personal, and real estate for some of our major businesses. And it's a good reference as you look at Commonwealth, the former Miller Coors, Ball Metal values from each year, and it shows the new ones that we project. And as I say, it's a lot of information, but it could be something useful if you're asked questions about previous years. Commonwealth has ceased operations. They are marketing this with the equipment that has not been removed. They will fully list in April 15th. We have a good relationship with them. We toured it on 1/8/2020. Mohawk Aladdin has relocated a rug line to Georgia. This is going to cause some equipment to be scrapped or removed. It's just a small part of it. We toured that facility on 1/9/2020. Public service companies, a large part of our taxes come from the $864 million we bill for public service. Duke Power is our largest taxpayer countywide. Last year, we saw an increase of $4 million, which is a little less than we have in previous years. It could have peaked. Piedmont Natural Gas is putting an additional pipeline in the southwest part of the county, but we can never rule out a decrease in public utility. The North Carolina Department of Revenue suggests we always project from tax 95% of the value. We've not dropped 5% in several years though. Registered motor vehicles have done very well in the last few years. We had about $813 million of value in registered motor vehicles. In 2019, December of 2019, we were up from December of 2018. So they appear to be holding and growing. We do have some non-reevaluation appeals. Aaron's Rentals has 3 years of tax values on appeal at Raleigh at the Property Tax Commission. 77 Ventures, which is the former Miller Coors, also has their personal property under appeal in addition to the real property. For collections, our unpublished so far collections rate for 2018-2019 taxes was 98.4%. The previous year was 98.14%. I've attached through, when I pulled this record a couple days ago, the county only, we were at 92% collected. As you know, after the taxes go delinquent, the hard work through June 30 to make sure we collect as high a percentage as we can is what we're working on now. In summary, the raw numbers that we have so far indicate $50 to $60 million increase in new construction values. We hope business personal property values will remain stable from last year. Public utility values won't be certified until September of 2020. We can never rule out a decrease, but we do hope they remain stable. Registered motor vehicle values appear to be stable with some growth. If you have any questions, as I said, lots of stats here on the back. If you have further information that you need, the other handout was for me later.
Pretty thorough. Yeah, I sometimes, we rob your department frequently of employees going to other places. Is that a problem for your department?
I think, maybe countywide recruiting is.
Yeah.
We have a new person starting today, but a good person, if they stay working for the county, is a win for the county. And you can't fault anyone for wanting to advance.
I'm just asking, is it a problem for your department?
Recruiting can be hard, especially if we have to recruit real property appraisers. Like building inspectors, if we have to train them cold, which we can, it can take years.
We have a few things on here to get to that will hopefully start.
Mr. Hall.
I just wanted to touch base on the building permits. You mentioned 2019 was a decrease of 180, whereas 2018 was 185. But really, when you look back at the schedule, 180 is still a big increase over 2016, 2015. The trend going back to 2014 is 104, then 2015 was 119, 2016 was 125, 2017 was 148. So when you look at the trend, kind of 2018 was a spike,
Yes.
and whereas 2019 would continue on that same trend we've been seeing. So it made it look like that was falling off, when it doesn't really look like it is.
It's kind of stabilized, and what we would see is 1 or 2 subdivisions can drastically change that. Back when I was in the field, if you look back to 2004, we had 301 single-family dwelling permits. The previous year, 230. So that was when Winston Forest and Country Park and Greensboro National were still rolling good.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's something that we're taxing just in Winston Forest.
Any other questions you got, Mark?
Well, I think we ought to be more specific, certain streets. No more questions, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, sir.
Pat's next up with her financial forecast.
Okay. I'll try to be brief because there's some other, I think some things that came out from the audit presentation I want to spend just a few minutes on. So I'm going to be quick on the forecast part of it unless you have specific questions. I'm just going to do some highlights here. So I passed out a packet you have. It has the sheet on the top. Yep. There's a packet of information. So the first sheet is the forecast. It has the 2019 adopted budget, the 2020 adopted budget, and sort of just the projections right now for 2021. This is very early, like we don't have requests from departments yet, so we really don't have exactly what they're going to be requesting or needing. These are just the things that we know. Right behind that is sort of just a verbal summary or written summary of what is included in this forecast. So just in general, the 2021 forecast assumes that there would be no change in the tax rate. So the things that we're able to accomplish with that assumption, salary and benefits, there's an overall 2% increase in salary and benefits, assuming that we're going to get to a tiered merit program for performance, based on performance evaluation. So when that program is developed, we'll fine tune that number, but right now there's a 2% increase in that. In addition to that, for salary and benefits, because we've been budgeting for merit increases the last couple of years, knowing that it's on the employee's anniversary date, assuming that half of that merit increase is going to be incurred in 1 year, we have to budget for the other half the next year. So an additional $300,000 is included in this forecast to go ahead and fully fund the merit increases that would go into place this fiscal year that we're in now. So that's included in the forecast. Another big jump that we're going to see in salary and benefits is in the North Carolina government employees' retirement. Their rates are going up an overall average of 13.4% this year. General government's going from 8.95% to 10.15%, and law enforcement 9.7 to 10.9. That's going to be about $350,000.
And you have a forecast from the state over the next, what, did they share with you?
Yes.
3 years?
Yes.
And this is not, yes?
Yes.
This
No.
is just year one of Get Ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's as high as 14%. for
Yeah, yes, this is, you're right, there's more increases to come. This year is $350,000.
And next year, you're gonna add on top of
We'll
that?
add on top of that,
And
yes,
then
sir.
the third year, and it's gonna be significant, then.
Yes. So that is built into this forecast that we have right now, the current year. Operating expenses, December's consumer price index is 2.3%. So just globally, all operating expenses have gone up 2.3% in the forecast. Just hit on debt service. Our overall general government debt service will be $93,000 less this year than it was or in 2021 than it is this year. We do I anticipate a new debt issue coming up this next budget year for the RCC Workforce Development Center. If that stays on track, we would look to issue debt later, midway through the fiscal year. First debt service payment is typically a year later, so we would not anticipate having a debt service payment the year of construction, but it'd pick up after that. But the Article 46 sales tax that has been implementing, it's projected to generate $2,040,000 next year. It's more than sufficient to cover the debt service that's anticipated at this point in time. Water and sewer fund debt service will reduce by $15,000 over the current year. The forecast does not include any significant capital outlay increase. We'll deal with that through capital improvement plan adoption and through existing available fund balance that we have. So we'll talk more about that through another process. School expenses in here are projected to stay the same as they currently are now and have been for several years. And the Article 46 sales tax increase is in here. Ad valorem tax, based on numbers that I've worked with from Mark's projection of values, depending on the tax rate, will be about $760,000. Increase in overall tax revenue is about $1.3 million. And that's just based on his values. The increase in tax collection rate, for the ad valorem tax, last year's tax collection rate was 98.37. The audited rate for 2019 was 98.14. I got that reversed. Last year was 98.14. This year was 98.37. So it's taking advantage of those increasing collection rates the tax department is seeing these days. Sales tax. The point of sale is kind of flat. It's not doing a whole lot of growth right now. The per capita is going, a portion of it is going better. So overall 3.6% increase between the two articles, or $368,000. Some other revenues we've seen some increases in are EMS fees and becoming in higher. So the projection includes about $500,000 increase in EMS fees, and reducing cable franchise fees by $100,000. We've lost cable, charter cable franchise fees that we were receiving. We're no longer receiving that revenue, so we're reducing that by $100,000.
What was that revenue based on?
Excuse me?
What was that revenue loss based on? How did they determine
I've asked Derek to do some research on this, but what we think, at least at this point, we were one of the last counties to still have a county franchise. I can't remember what year it was, but it was shortly after we did ours in 2003 that the state took over all franchising for cable. So our contract ran out this last year. It was a 15-year contract. And so we get revenue from the state for cable franchise things. This is just the final payment of that. Did I say that right, Derek?
So you're saying there should be an increase from the state somewhere else commensurate with the $100,000 loss?
I'm not sure it'll be commensurate with the $100,000 loss, unfortunately.
State's gonna take it.
It'd probably be something similar to the way that they did the 911 street.
We will wait and see.
The last revenue point is just investment earnings. I'm still seeing upward trend of investment earnings over what we had been having in previous years. Interest rates, of course, have declined during 2019. They're expected to be steady or even further decline, could be further decline coming up this year. So did a little increase to capture what we are seeing, but have remained ultra conservative, knowing that can probably come back down. Do you have any specific questions on just the forecast itself? If not, I want to speak quickly on fund balance and sort of the audit findings, just sort of put all that together.
Is any of your audit findings that you're going to discuss deal with insurance?
Health insurance? Not the health insurance rates, the health insurance finding, yes. But included in this forecast, I guess I need to go back in that. We are seeing an increase in our health insurance claims costs for the first 6 months this year. So this forecast does include a 10% increase in claims costs. So that's about $480,000 for general government employees and $220,000 for 40-65 retirees. So that's conservative at this point. We will need to work through what's driving the claims up, what design changes we may need to make in the plans, or sharing in cost of it.
And this may be a good place to interject. I have been reached out by a couple of our local, and I think I shared with you, and I'll share with you, John, local pharmacists who is sharing with me that employees are coming to them with scripts, and they are going to be unable to continue to fill some of them because of the cost of the medication their cost of the medication exceeds what the reimbursement is from I guess third-party vendor. And I just share with you that, you know, obviously a lot of these local pharmacists we depend on in this county because they do deliveries. And we are, shared with us earlier, we are an aging county, and a lot of our citizens, you know, have relationships with these pharmacists, and it's just making it more difficult, especially if these medications are, if they're going backwards, if they got more money in it than we do. So I just share that, and I shared that with the manager, and it's a concern, I think.
Third-party vendor, and there were several pharmacies that they reached out to. I don't know what type of, Nicole, did they come up with any type of remedy for that?
Not that I'm aware of this moment.
So we can continue this conversation when we go back through working with
Pierce Group.
Pierce Group,
Likely the only way we can change that, because that formulary is set by UMR, United, would be to switch what umbrella we're under. And Blue Cross may have different negotiated rates with the pharmacies. I don't know. We didn't hear from Blue Cross. That's not something we have control over.
And we just have control of the vendor, not the
price. Not the price, right.
A couple sheets I've given you that I've not seen before, I've not given to you before. I wanted to talk about fund balance a little bit. So you heard in y'all's presentation Monday night that we had an available fund balance of 33%. The actual number that you have available to appropriate is 23%, and I want to talk through why the difference and what the number that we drive off of locally here. So we have different standards, governmental accounting standards board says these are your categories of fund balance, and here's what is in those categories of fund balance. So at the top of the sheet, this is a sheet that looks like this, it says general government fund balance available for appropriation calculation. So the first part of this shows you how the auditor calculates this, and it's based on what's reported in the financial report based on governmental accounting standards. So his number included unassigned and assigned fund balance of $28 million. That's how he received the 33%. You cannot spend assigned, you cannot appropriate assigned fund balance because it is already appropriated. So we have to back that off. So what you have available to spend is the unassigned, but included in the unassigned are some things that we have reserved in fund balance that don't rise to the criteria to be able to be presented in the financial statement as unassigned fund balance. But we already have commitments for those funds. So I need to take unassigned fund balance that is based on the financial statement and pull out those items that we have certain reservations for future expenditures, and make sure that we're not appropriating those dollars twice or appropriating them as available for other things, and we really have them designated for future needs or future programs. So the first part, like I said, is per the audit presentation that shows you exactly how the auditor comes up with the 33% that he presented to you. The bottom part is how I come up with the calculation, or the calculation that I do to show you what you have available to appropriate above your 18%. So we have a total fund balance for the audit report of $37 million. The non-spendable portion, which is receivables that we have not received the cash for, you can't spend that money. Restricted by state statute is basically your payables that you have booked. We have cash in the bank to spend, but you can't spend it because you have outstanding liabilities that money is designated for. That's basically what state statute is. We have other restricted, which is basically our fund balance appropriated. Every year we appropriate some portion of fund balance in our adopted budget. We have to pull that off. In addition to that, we have rollovers. So those commitments at June 30th at the end of the year that we have not spent yet, that we're rolling forward for the completion of the project or the contract next year. That amount of fund balance I have to deduct as well. We can't spend that again. We're already going to spend that. The rest of that are these reservations that I'm talking about. These bottom, the reserve for programs, are the amounts that are not included. I'm sorry, they are included in the unassigned fund balance, but we have them restricted for other purposes. Donations that are made to libraries, we hold those for library purposes. Sheriff's Department has earned certain revenues that they are held and designated for the sheriff programs. Cooperative Extension charged fees for future programs. The KBR, that's designated for the Integrated Health Program. We hold money for revaluation. We're now budgeting for future revaluation costs. So we have funds in our cash account that will in the future cover these. So those are all the categories of reserve fund balance that I pull out. It gets down to the amount that you have available for appropriation is $20 million, which is 23% of the fund balance, or 23% of your general government expenditures. 18% of that is $15 million. You're allowed by fund balance policy to expend or to appropriate for one-time needs anything above 18%. That gives you $4.6 million that would be available to appropriate. And then this is where we will start tying in the CIP plan for things that have to probably do with these when that conversation happens. So I just want to make sure you guys have a formula or a method to the madness of why the audit presentation number is different than what I tell you that you can appropriate.
That's true. Good.
Thank you.
And what our goal is, speaking with you guys, is that once we have that discussion on the capital improvement plan, and however you guys want to prioritize, we put together a prioritization, but you guys may see something different. So, but we can use portions of that to go towards the CIP to at least get the ball rolling with what we have to get done.
And that's today.
This is as of June 30th. So we have to look at, as far as general statute, you have to look at your June 30th of your previous year for appropriation for the future year. So we look at June 30th, 2019, and I will update this for anything that we do between July 1 and you get to budget adoption, anything that we pull out of fund balance, you will see those lines come in here so that we're not appropriating those twice. So yes, this is as of June 30th, but it will definitely change when you get to budget adoption.
Answer my next question before I can answer it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we were very keen on that.
You'll see this when we get into the capital improvement discussion. Our goal for that 5 years is to come up with a sustainable funding source that we can work off of for doing future capital or saving for projects that we don't have to debt finance. But that's where this can come in. If there's projects that don't meet that sustainable funding formula that we're trying to come up with, you can appropriate this, do projects earlier, do them later.
This $44.6 million, that is an unencumbered number, right? There's no outstanding projects, capital improvement projects this year that has yet to be completed that would require this number to be updated.
As of June 30th, I wanted to get the snapshot based on the CAFR that was presented to you. I have not updated this for anything we may have appropriated this
Of the last
budget year.
6 months,
Yes,
7 months.
correct. But that will be updated before we get to the CIP discussion.
So that, realistically, that number is probably going to be lower.
Could be lower.
We'll be lower.
And
We'll be
just-
lower because we're doing something.
Yeah, and as far as that capital improvement plans, part of that may need to be updated with whatever we end up doing with water line extensions. So, I mean,
True.
that,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Commissioner Travis?
Pat, thank you. On the bottom of that last sheet there, the rollover of prior year's unspent funds, is that from fund balance or is that from the budget?
Rollover is from fund balance because the year has ended, June 30th ends. Once June 30th hits, all revenues over expenditures close to fund balance. We have to roll over to the next budget year items that weren't complete. So contracts, programs, projects that were underway that aren't completed, and we had not spent the money yet. That money gets close to fund balance, so I have to appropriate it back out of fund balance for the
I
next
just
year.
want to make sure it wasn't coming from our
But it's obligated.
general, it's already obligated.
It's already obligated,
Okay,
and
that's
it's
what I'm
recognizing that we have these obligations that we can't spend again.
That's
We've
what
got
I'm-
to
thank you.
complete those first. So the second sheet that you're talking about, the sheet right here,
Yeah,
this
fine.
only gives you a history since 2014 of what fund balances look like, beginning, ending, how it increased, sort of the trend. I will say this year was not a normal year because we had things like public health got 2 distributions of their Medicaid distribution, which is odd. We've had some sale of property. We had the timber sale that came to the general fund. So we had some one-time things that happened this year that increased that number.
So the trend's not gonna be consistent with that.
Yeah, you got to take that in consideration. We had some one-time things going on there. And just the last couple of years, we've tried to be ultra conservative with tax projections, trying to figure out what Middle Court is doing. So that's impacted some of our budget numbers.
But to grow 12 million in 6 years is pretty good job.
It is, but it's one of those, when we sit and look at what your projections are for next year, it's hard to forecast what you're going to be able to add to.
Yeah.
Because you have a certain level of unknowns that still exist, and
Exactly.
we know just by conversations with something simple as you just take health insurance and the cost with the retirement going up for our employees. That's going to be significant numbers in the years to come.
And just one, real quick, I just want to touch on the 3 audit findings, financial audit findings. I know we're short on time. I just want to make sure everybody was doing the same thing and was clear. So we have 3 financial audit findings, budget overage, and the health insurance fund. That simply came from the liability that I have to report at year end for incurred but not reported. It's medical claims that have been incurred by patients or our employees that have not gone through the health insurance process of validating those claims and figuring out what the payout on those are. That number is not available to me until after year end, August. It's usually about August, right? You go grab that from the health insurance company and figure out what that number is. So we did not pay out any more than we collected in revenues, but I am required to look at that liability to recognize that liability. Once that liability is booked, This past year, it caused the budget to go over, and therefore it is a compliance, budgetary compliance issue. Auditors are required to file that regardless. They're required to report on that. So that was simply what that is. What we're going to do to address that is our budget projections going forward. We're going to go ahead and start increasing, especially now that we're seeing claims costs go up. We're going to increase our projection on that liability every year and go ahead and budget a higher amount to make sure we have that covered and do not see that again. Segregation of duties of utilities. We talked a little bit about that. It was mainly we have just, you know, one staff member that was doing the whole utility billing, collection, adjustments. The auditors, you know, mentioned that to us. We knew that, but due to staff limitations, staff shortages, ability to cross-train, we didn't have a choice. I've got to say, Carrie and Ronnie jumped right in there when we brought it to their attention. They jumped right in there. It was like, yes, we'll find a way to fix this. Ronnie's staff is taking on the billing. Carrie's staff is handling the payment. So before the auditors left the field, we were already having conversations and already having discussions about what we can do with existing staff, especially since central permitting was going through a whole different organizational change anyway. It was a good time to jump in there and say, how can we fix these? And Carrie has been very responsive to understanding when these have come up, and so what can we do to fix this? And she's constantly reaching out to me. So we address that immediately, and it's already been fixed, and we continue to look for other ways to strengthen that control. The user access, Derek talked on that. They found where we had accounts that had been dormant for a while, the access hadn't been removed. Derek jumped right on that, had already been working on that. It's just he's sped that up now, I think. He's really looking at those and making sure that he's constantly has a process in place that's monitoring user access, and accounts are being shut down or disabled when the user is gone. So I just want to make sure that I've had a chance to speak with you directly on those findings, and then address any concerns you may have.
Any questions?
I got one more thing to add, or just making sure that everybody is aware of. I just sat here and did some simple math. Forecasted in 2021, our contribution to the North Carolina retirement system is going to go up $350,000. Our health insurance for existing employees, we anticipate going up $480,000. That's $830,000. And then when you throw, which is a little over a penny on our ad valorem, this is just additional cost, and this will be reoccurring cost because it's not going to go down. And then we added our retirees into that. That's going to be $1.1 million in additional cost in next year's budget. And to put that in perspective, we're talking about doing a salary increase, which I think is much deserved. But when we did talk about doing a $300,000 merit increase for employees, that's good, but keep in mind on the backside of this, we're going to spend about $830,000 just on health care and retirement increases, not existing, but increases.
Yeah, and it's epidemic across the state.
Oh, yeah,
Every county and city and town.
And what's really concerning to me is the healthcare, I know is very volatile, but that retirement contribution, that is a significant burden on municipalities and counties across the state. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of our retirement system because they're very good to me the 25th of each month. But it is, the cost associated with that is increasing significantly.
There's two things I need to cover before Commissioner Brother leaves, if possible. The first is the budget calendar in front of you. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with the budget calendar and what we need to do. So the board will look at it and make any modifications, suggestions, or just tell us to proceed this way. It's kind of what we provided in the past, but I want to make sure that everybody's clear.
Really, the only change to this calendar from how we've typically done things, to give the board a little bit more time to review it, we moved back the date that we'll present the budget to the board to the Friday before the Monday meeting to give you the weekend.
Okay, some of you all had asked for the weekend to review it, so we added an extra weekend to it.
Thank you.
We'll still have and that's the day we have to release it to the public and the media and all that stuff, but we'll still have a presentation that night, the Monday, 18th night to go over it.
Will that include the school system's request?
If we have it.
We usually get that at the
What's May the 15th?
11th hour, yeah.
It's May 15th, and they usually don't turn it in until May 15th.
Yep, 4:30.
Do we have anybody from the school board? I mean, it would make it a whole lot easier with our projections, even if they give us it's just some numbers. But I'm not telling you that to do. Thank you for what you did.
You guys fine with this?
Okay.
I'm good with it.
All right, the one person I want to bring up before Kevin leaves is Rodney Cates to talk about and it was, this isn't on yours, but we had talked about it afterwards on the agenda. He needed to kind of give you a heads up because it's going to be a real impact to you all budget-wise in the next 5 years, 4 years?
5 years. It's on the capital. We're 2025.
And it's on the capital plan, but you just need to hear.
So the state, we're on, for public safety communications, we're on the state's Viper system. That's been in place for quite some time. Due to the demand on the Viper system and updating technology, the Viper system will be upgrading over the next 5 years. And what they're doing, and they use their terminology, currently they are on a frequency division multiple access. They are moving to time division multiple access. What all that means is we have to purchase radios. The radios that we currently have throughout all of emergency services in this county, some agencies have been proactive and have purchased radios that will accept the new technology, but the large majority of radios will not accept the TDMA, is what they refer to it as, the TDMA technology. So we're going to be faced over the next 5 years, and there's some timelines that the Viper Group has put out, but there are some timelines that we're going to have to face over the next 5 years to update our cache of radios. So in talking with Lance about this, I think what we need to do, number one, the timelines are identified by the state, but as a group that will be responsible for upgrading these radios or purchasing the new radios, we need to develop a strategic timeline and strategic goals to meet these timelines. We need to look at our obligation. Who are we obligated to, and to what degree are we obligated to our public safety partners throughout the county? Radios are outrageously expensive. The good part, and I verified this yesterday, the current radios that are on the system right now, every radio that's working in this county right now will work through July 1st, 2025. So that's good. That gives us a bit of cushion. But at the same time, the Viper Group strongly encourages don't wait till the last hour to purchase these radios, because they are, depending on what is decided upon, a mobile radio is about $3,600 a piece, and a portable radio are about $3,300 a piece. Then you have installation fees. This is going to impact every entity of public safety within the county. So I guess what I'm bringing to you today, number one, is the timeline that is established by the Viper Group. The first timeline was January 1 of 2020. No radios can be added to the Viper talk groups. You can't put them on the Viper system. If they were not already on it, you can't add anything to the Viper Group that is not compliant with the new technology. But radios already on the talk groups as of January 1 are good for 5 years. So that gives us our 5-year buffer. We're good to go right there. The second thing, for these agencies, and the county is part of that, that have bought radios that are TDMA compliant, they still may not have the feature that activates TDMA. So that feature has to be activated by July 1, 2022. They call that a flash up or an upgrade, and all it is a software upgrade. But that flash up is about $600 per radio, the current price for that. This could change over this time period. Currently, that's what we're looking at. So our timeline, number one, radios that are currently purchased that are TDMA compliant, we've got to determine a plan to get those upgraded, the funding to get those upgraded, and how many we actually have to upgrade. And in that meantime, we have to include in that plan, how are we going to replace the current radios? What you'll hear is XTS, XTL. That's the two radio models that are out there now that cannot be upgraded. Our current radios, they will not accept the TDMA upgrade to them. So we have to develop a plan of how are we going to replace those radios and how deeply are we going to go in our public safety entities to replace those radios. So that's what we're faced with, yes, sir.
You've mentioned this time division or frequency division. Now, these radios that have the TDMA capability, is this a dual mode operation, or once they're flashed, they can't be used on the old network anymore? Is this something that they can continue to operate those until everything's updated?
Yes, they will operate. It's just an upgrade. It's a date line for that upgrade, but yes, they will still operate and be functional under FDMA or TDMA.
So it's not something that we have to have them all done at the same time and have one big switch over. It's something that can be brought in and phased in.
Yes, sir. That's
Okay.
correct. I have reached out to vendors. Motorola is the vendor of choice. It has been in public safety for years, and I'm not here to promote Motorola. There are other vendors out there. I have reached out for other pricing from other vendors. I think we need to look at cheaper is not always better, and we need to get buy-in from our public safety partners in that. But we have a lot of options. Even talking to all of the vendors that I've talked to, there are outright purchase options, there are lease to purchase options, there are lease options. There are a ton of options to acquire these radios, because the Viper Group identifies, and in their literature, they identify that this is a very costly project and will be very costly and burdensome on a lot of counties, municipalities, local departments. So that's where we need to determine through our strategic plan, who are we in alliance with through these projects.
This is one of the largest items that's on that capital improvement plan right now for the next 5 years that we're aware of.
Gentlemen, I've been through this in my previous career when we changed over to the Viper system. And Rodney's did a great job of summarizing the task at hand. And cheaper is not always better, because you're working off of a Motorola-based infrastructure. And when you get outside of that, there can be, when you have an issue, it can be a blame can fall on both sides, or accusations of the problem. Makes it much more difficult to problem solve. However, just off the top of your head, Rodney, how many radios do we have operating on the Viper system in Rockingham County?
In all of the county, all radios,
Yes.
including municipalities, law
Absolutely.
enforcement, everybody, is around 1,419 radios.
Does that
So you
include
can do the
mobile?
math.
That's mobile, portable, that's law enforcement, fire, rescue, all the county entities, CCOM, EMS, fire marshal's office, that's everybody.
That's everybody.
County owned, which is CCOM, EMS, emergency management, fire marshal's office, the sheriff's department's about 336 radios.
Well, it's my understanding, Sheriff, his staff been on top of it. They've been purchasing a little bit here and there as their budget goes, so. Sheriff is here. How many more is left to purchase from the sheriff department, or are you still in the process to have that done before?
At this point, we've been able to purchase probably 6 radios that we've been awarded, but that's just a drop in the bucket of how many that we need.
And I guess, Rodney, you're the same way. Your staff has been purchasing a little bit as they go.
We've done that with EMS. Our newer units that we've been replacing over the last couple of years, we've upgraded to the radio that will accept TDMA. So we've tried to be proactive. There are some departments throughout the county that have been proactive. But again, like Jennifer just said, 6 radios, the sheriff's department on our log has 210. So even though there are a lot of people that have been proactive, radios are so costly that proactive measures are still not providing you with near the number of radios that they're going to need over the course of time.
Question, and I make this point, it's so obvious I'm embarrassed, but are we buying more than we need? And if we've got to get 1,400 of these, have we looked at a collective procurement?
i.e. a quantity buy rather than 6 at a time, or 2 or 3 at a time, whatever you guys were able to record.
I fully agree, we do need to fine tune our numbers. These numbers that we have are Jason Wood maintains he's our Viper coordinator. He maintains the list of every radio that's on the Viper list. Some of these may be spare radios that, granted, each agency needs spare radios, but we need to fine tune what level of spare radios do we need. And buying power, there is a ton of buying power and buying in bulk.
Buying bulk.
We have studied that with other counties. Another county in the Piedmont bought 1,000 radios. They went in on a trade-in option where they could trade in their old XTS, XTL models. They got somewhere in the neighborhood of $800 per radio per trade-in. So on a $1,000 radio purchase, they had an $800,000 savings. So buying in bulk is certainly the way to go. And that's why when we look at this, how deeply are we committed, or how do we incentivize others to be in on the buy?
I think you got the gist, and I certainly don't want to get into that level of detail, but we're going to call a break right now. If we need to come back to Rodney, this was information, right? No vote.
Yeah, I think we're good with Rodney with this particular part.
I just want some options.
Okay.
That's all I want, some options.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rodney.
Including those that you suggest, all right. I'm going to declare a 5-minute break. We're going to make a sign, and if you could be back.
Yeah, and I want to thank the department heads for being here. Sorry, I've got a personal matter to attend to. Sometimes things pop up that are not anticipated, so, but the rest of them will take care of things from here. I'll be updated, I can promise you.
We might change his salary while it's going on. If you would be back here at 11:01. Okay. Mr. Manager, I declare us reconvened. Are you ready?
Yes, sir. So you all had asked that we reach out to any departments that thought they were going to have any significant budget changes in this upcoming fiscal year budget. So we had 4 different departments that saw the potential of having a significant increase. And I'll start off with Melissa and DSS regarding caseloads and staffing.
Is the firing squad in place?
The firing squad is almost in place.
That was a joke about Tom getting out of work.
So do you want me to start with the budget, or do you want me to do a really brief consolidation?
Really brief consolidation, then go into budget.
Absolutely. So back in July of 2018, Ronnie Tate and I did a presentation to the commissioners about approximately $1 million project to do a consolidated access, which would have brought health department and social services together. So when consumers came in to get certain types of services or benefits, they would have been able to do it in one spot. That was not a consideration made by the commissioners. So then we took a step back and looked at, okay, what other things could we try to do that would maybe give us that component. So one of the areas in our public health division was our medical records. As you know, we're moving into EHR, electronic health records. So we don't need that space any longer for actual physical records. So that was deconstructed, and we looked at that space. Ronnie did a great job of looking at that space and how we could revamp it so that we could put offices in there. So that process has been slowly going on for the past year or so, and it's finishing up. And our goal was to put 2 social services employees over there to assist with food nutritional services, Medicaid, etc. So as that is finishing up at this time, we are also in the process of a move from the A&E building, where we've got youth services, our child support, and our veteran services. We're going to be moving out temporarily into some other offices, while the Daymark facility is going to be moving into that area, and then those folks are going to be eventually consolidated into the mental health building. What our goal is for consolidation with that is
with youth services providing a lot of our care to our foster care children, particularly with trauma focus, CBT and EMDR, we're going to be moving our child welfare programs in with youth services so that we have this seamless process of our staff working with the counselors so that we can address some of the issues that we're seeing with our children as they come into care and as they're continuing to have care with us. So it's an efficiency issue. It's also a best practice to help our foster children be able to get services they need quickly and easily. So we had a meeting actually yesterday. Youth Services and Veterans Affairs will be moving out starting next Monday. Veteran Services is going to temporarily actually occupy the 2 offices downstairs in Public Health Division that were going to be for the social services folks. Again, the timeline has sped up on that from what we found out yesterday. So she'll be in there until that move with Daymark happens to the AAU building. And then she'll be moving into the Family Services building when Daymark has moved out and the rest of those folks have been moved in. So that is as brief as I can make it. Are there any questions with that?
Any questions? Okay.
So we were directed to discuss any kind of issues that we may be anticipating for the coming year with budget. As you guys know, we don't have a state budget at this time, and it is beginning to have an impact on our organization as we speak. We are looking at some changes with NC Fast. Just told of us this coming past Tuesday. As you know, NC Fast is one of the systems that we have to use when it comes to eligibility with food nutritional services and Medicaid, and we are also using that system for child welfare. Most of you know it has been a very cumbersome system since its rollout back in 2012. Significant issues with processes with it. We've addressed those with the state. We've been very proactive when there are issues of turning those into help desk tickets and things like that. And additionally, with child welfare, we've been a pilot county with 10 other counties, and we have been addressing those issues as we see in the system. However, because of the state budget not being passed, we received notification this past week that because of the funding issues, they are going to be losing contracted providers that are working in the NC Fast and IBM systems. So we are going to be delayed even more when we have help desk tickets or issues in the system, and we are now being asked to manually track those and report those to the state. We've been tracking those all along, just so you know, and actually have been reporting those to the county manager. He is aware every single time we have an issue. This is the reason why it's taking us longer to process. This is the reason why, we have this, and this happening. And that was one of the reasons why we put quality assurance staff in last year in the budget that we rolled out this year, because we don't trust the system. I don't really know how to put it any other way. So having somebody go behind so that we don't have audit findings on a large Medicaid case is one of the areas that we have worked very hard to do so that we can lower the liability to the county, reduce the risk. So in saying that, we have overtime. We have overtime in economic benefits programs, and we have overtime in services programs. I've reached out to Paul to get a kind of synopsis of the amount of time that we've had in our overtime. For just services alone, we're over 4,200 hours. Now, that's probably not a true picture because of the way that the program is run. When he pulls the report, it's also pulling the on-call time. So he's going to try to look at that for me later next week so I can get a better number on that. But with economic benefits programs, we have over 3,600 hours in overtime. So in this year, we have requested, or we're planning to request, some programs where we need folks in food stamps, and we need folks in Medicaid. We need accounting technicians. We need a human services planner evaluator, and we're gonna need some adult services social workers. And I wanna give a support to Mr. Emery when he was doing his presentation today. We are seeing a huge increase in adult services calls. And that is a reflection of our county. We have an older population that is remaining here, and younger folks are moving out. Questions about that?
How many people are you requesting?
Total, 9 positions. What you're looking at, as you know, we pull in federal revenues and a little bit of state money. You are looking at the federal share being at $282,000 and the county share being about $210,000.
I'm fully accepting. I'm just trying to get my hands around it. You indicated about 4,000 hours of overtime to cover this. Well, a 40-hour-a-week employee is 2,000 hours. So you've got about 2 employees worth of hours versus 9 position requests. Can you rationalize that for me?
Sure. So of the economic benefits programs with that 4,000 hours, we are looking at system downtime as well as the issues with folks being out for FMLA as well as processing times. Now, they may not be full. One of the things that we're working on, and remember, this was preliminary. We're just trying to figure out, okay, what do we need? They may not necessarily be IMC staff. One of the things that Debbie and I have been discussing is there a way, since we don't have a document management system, because the document management system that was going to roll out with NCFAS, we were one of the ones that were piloting it this year. It didn't work. So we were having to hand scan everything into each of these records every time. We're looking at possibly of seeing if we can have technicians do that versus individuals that are IMCs, which is a higher salary.
I accept all that. Maybe I can kind of cut to the chase, depending on what you guys, there are a lot of details we could ask you about that are too nugatory, right? You're going to have to convince Paul, because he's going to convince us.
That's fine.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And that's kind of a tasking to you.
My thing is, I understand the need or the want. I mean, sheriff wants 10 more deputies, but I mean, he's gonna get it. You know, what can you get by with? That's what I need to know.
Well, and no mistake, our priority is serving our citizens. And so we will look at whatever figure comes out of this.
Well, and to clarify, what we asked departments to do was to early look, what do they think they may be requesting? What we'll do over the next few months is work through those requests and see if we can come to something and make everything balance up.
And can you find these 9 people if that's what we end up doing?
So, yes, and one of our biggest challenges this year has been staff turnover. I did some quick numbers yesterday looking at staff turnover. We've had about a 36% turnover in economic benefits just this year alone. And we've had about a 50% turnover in staff in services this year. And some of those were personnel issues and some of those were employees that are going to other agencies because they have a better opportunity there.
Some of it's burnout. I mean, she was talking about the hours. I mean, these people just get burned out and go to another position.
Or they retire.
Yeah.
They're retiring.
Well, I know it's Commissioner Perla and I sit on your board, so we get to know these details. I mean, we had an employee shot at a couple years ago. I mean, this is not necessarily most salubrious sort
And you've
of
had
working.
2 other incidents just this past year similar.
Well, we had something fairly recently that was disturbing, so.
Yes. The other component is the amount of audits that we are receiving. We are having federal audits, state audits, audits that are being added on by the legislature. There are audits being added on by the state auditor. Those all require extra time, and when you have audits like that, it pulls our staff away from their daily work, and then they have to sit with that auditor, and a lot of times we actually end up training the auditor so that they understand what they're looking at in our system because they cannot access our system. So we have to sit there and go page by page in the system. And so then they take their notes, they pull the information, they ask us to pull the information, And that takes considerable time. So one of the things that we are gonna be looking at is how much time are we really spending on pulling that information for audits? And what is that costing you for the county in that process? So that's one of the reasons why we're asking for accounting folks. My fiscal officer is here every single weekend. She works nothing more than 10 or more hours extra a week trying to keep up with the demand of the paperwork and the information that she's going to need to present when we have all of these different audits. So that's part of that too. It is a plethora of extra duties and responsibilities that are being pushed to us. The other component, particularly with adult services, is we were just told recently that the state has had these guardianship slots for the last 8 years. I can't tell you how many that is for our county because we have not received the spreadsheet yet, but they are returning all of those boards back to the county. They are no longer going to be managing that. So that will be additional burden to workers that will add to their caseloads. So currently right now we have over 80 wards that we are responsible for. We have over around 160 children in foster care. So we continue to get a lot of boards appointed to us because there are no other public entities that will take that on. And just frankly, child welfare has exploded in the past 6 months. From July to January, this time last year, we took over 30 kids in care. From July to January this year, we've taken about 70 children in care. And a lot of that has to do with behavioral health and substance use and domestic violence.
I understand your need, especially the overtime, but the way you're pitching it is if you get these positions, there won't be no overtime, and you know there will be overtime.
Yeah.
So this is the wrong way to pitch these positions. I mean, you're gonna have overtime no matter what we give you. You know it and I know it. So we need to know the need, why. Because the overtime, just throw that out the picture because I know you're gonna have overtime.
Okay, we're gonna have overtime.
Well, it might not be.
Hopefully not so as substantial as we got now. I mean, I could go into detail about some of these employees that are banking up big hours, but I won't go into detail about that.
It'll eliminate, hopefully it'll bring it down some, right?
Sure, spread it out a little bit.
Yeah, spread it up more people, okay.
I admire what you do, and it's an absolute necessity to do it, but thank you for consolidating it and quantifying it, but so we can approach it logically and empathetically as we go forward. Questions, gentlemen?
It sounds like a 50% funding mandate from the state, and it's underfunded.
Yep.
And the bureaucracy that you're forced to deal with. I mean, when you have an auditor come in from the state and you have to explain to them how to do their job, that's
definitely need to talk to legislators about that auditing business.
Well,
the other question is what's reasonable? When you know, we're sitting there looking at this report, you've got 3 or 4 deans.
Yeah.
Again, it's 5,355 transactions, 1 error.
1 error, that's
And
pretty
if
good.
I had to guess, I bet it's probably the same error that transmitted through all of them. I mean, what's realistic?
Right, what's realistic.
It seems that we
Maybe
spend more-
every other year do an audit instead of every year.
And we spend more time in the paperwork than we are helping the folks that need the services. And sometimes, somehow that's thing got upside down.
Maybe that's one time.
And it's frustrating. It's frustrating the staff. And we started off with Medicaid transformation. We had to go through all these steps. We were one of the first regions to roll out with that. We had to do a lot of upfront work, a lot of extra hours, a lot of things that we were told by the state, you don't have to worry about that. It's not going to impact you. And then on this end, it really did impact us. Now we're sitting here, we don't know what's going to happen with Medicaid transformation. They're moving forward with certain parts of it. Healthy Opportunities Grant, which we did put in a letter of intent so we can pull some of those grant dollars into our community and hopefully offset some of that with these positions. But that's not even going to be presented by PTRC. They'll be turning in that grant proposal in February. We won't hear anything about that until like May. And so all the pieces and parts that move when you try to do a human services budget when you don't have a state budget, and then you've got these other factors out there, you're not sure what's gonna happen with that. It makes it very challenging. So I do appreciate you saying that, Mr. Travis, that what is it that you're gonna need? We're gonna try to figure that out as best we can.
Right.
Well, let me give you some specificity, and give you all the stuff that she's talking about on some sort of one-page summary, because this is definitely an item that you and I need to take up with our representative and senator during our annual face-to-face.
Yeah. Problems.
And I don't know the exact time frame, Melissa, but
I mean,
he'll get you right.
I mean, my thing is, Felicia, whatever you think Chairman needs to when he talks to the representatives, that's what we need to know. So we can, I guess, be an advocate for your department to help, get some things settled out.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. I know Mr. Richardson has been a big advocate for us about the NCFAS system, and I greatly appreciate it.
I have spoken to that one individual, and that individual says we need to talk about it more later. So that's where it stands.
And that, unfortunately,
We're talking about it.
talking about it later, it doesn't help us with problems that we have in the system. We had one on Tuesday, so. Anything else?
Thank you. If we could, Mr. Chair, change up a little bit, since the sheriff's office has quite a few people here, can we move them up to 4
Yes,
times?
sir.
Sheriff?
Good go.
Al, Greg, Marcus, Jennifer, Shane, is there anything from the sheriff's department?
There's a couple out there.
Okay. Do we need more chairs? Okay, good. I think we do.
Encourages you to talk fast.
On the gun.
I've brought the delegation here today because this specific divisional commanders can answer any talking points, any question or anything. I think we've made our request for personnel in the area of patrol division, which is the field, detention side, and also from the investigative side with the narcotics division. I do want to let you know right off the bat that recently the Bureau of Justice, Community Oriented Policing have opened up some grant positions. So we are applying to hopefully for positions, whether it be for field or for school resource officers, because that is a big interest of ours. We know it's good for public safety, it's good for our families and our kids. But we know the dollar issue. If you listen to the situation with the radios, I was adding those numbers and I'm going like, it's amazing. Because I remember when those radios used to be $500, now they're $4,300 a piece. And so we're just trying to keep pace. And so we know we got a 5-year issue. I do want to thank you for the computer systems. Has been tremendous. Has been tremendous. I want to thank you for the body cam system. Tremendous to help us protect the public, protect our officers, and try to reduce some liabilities where we can. But again, we come to a situation where we have some needs. I only come before you to ask you what I need, not what I want. Since 2006 to the present, we haven't added any additional manpower in the field, in the patrol side. That's a long time, but we tried to make do. Each one of these commanders, they have the responsibility. They've answered calls. They will answer calls. Our school resource officers help answer calls. Our code enforcement unit help answer calls. We tried to make do, and we've tried to make do for the past 14 years, but I need help. Biggest reason for the request is providing that service. My responsibility is to provide service to 55,000 people out here in Rockingham County, our citizens, out in the unincorporated areas, and meeting those needs. I'm concerned about response times, being able to get to our citizens when they call for help. I've watched response times go from 11 to 13 minutes to 16 minutes. National average, I think, with the National Sheriff's Association is 18 minutes. But if you need help, 18 minutes is a long time. I tell a lot of people out here, I go to the different gun classes, talk to the carry conceal classes, they're the first line of defense to protect their families. It'd be nice if we could have an officer or a deputy on every street corner, but we'll never be able to do that because we can't afford it. But there are a lot of people in Rockingham County, 7,800 people have carry conceal permits in Rockingham County because they want to protect themselves and their families. And this year, I hope to see 10,000. I'm just letting you know. And I do want to commend you on February 3rd with the upcoming resolution. I appreciate you gentlemen taking that initiative to move forward and show your support for the Second Amendment, as I do, and I have shown for all these years. So At this time, if there are any particular questions, anything I've submitted, we're kind of here to see if there's any questions you've got. But basically, we have a need to be able to carry our mission to provide a service to law enforcement protection in the county. And this is why we've made the request. If you have any questions, I can go to the divisional commander and let them speak to those specific questions. Anything you might have.
Go ahead and update us real quick. How many patrol you have now, and what are you requesting for patrol?
Currently, we have 10 deputies. That's include 2 supervisors assigned to every patrol shift. That's 4 12-hour patrol shifts. The last time we upgraded to 10, adding those positions, was 2006. Currently, we're at the same number, but with vacation, sick time, holiday, you average about 8 people, 7, 8 people.
8 people per shift, or
per shift, allowing for vacation, sick time, holidays, and also we have 7 zones that we try to build a person in to patrol those areas. We're also seeing a trend over the past few years now is a lot of calls for paramedic support. We respond to a lot of paramedic calls now because there's a lot of unknowns. Paramedics used to not stage. Now, about every time a call goes out, they're staging on a lot of these calls, these unknowns. Since the fire departments, we've had 19 volunteer fire departments across the county, and we try to provide the best level of service we can to help them on traffic control out there. So there are a lot more demands on our agency now, but from 2006 to the present, we try to meet those needs. But when my command staff feel that these persons are necessary, we'd like to add 1 person per shift.
So you're talking about
11.
So 4 additional?
4 additional deputies, yes, sir.
Did you give us some paperwork we're supposed to have about your request, because we don't have anything?
I'll get it. I'll make it. Okay. We thought you already had that. I'm sorry. I'll just real quick. There were 4 deputy requests for patrol division. There was a request for 2 sworn deputies to work in the detention side, and we can explain that request. And then 1 position for a narcotics investigator.
2 for jail?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
And 1 for narcotics?
7 positions total. Yes, sir.
Other question? Sounds like you guys need to get out on the beat.
I just want to throw this out there. You don't have to answer this now, Sheriff, because we're going to go through the budget process.
Correct.
I'll just say some of my concerns, and I don't know how to run a sheriff's department, but sometimes it seems like, based on what I'm seeing, is you're top heavy with administration and not, in the field. So I'm wondering, have you looked at your administration and see if you got too many administrative staff, and can there some way to move administration staff into the field work? Has that even been considered? Because that's some of the complaints that I get, from talking to people. It just looks like from the public, you got way too many administrative than you do field officers.
Well, I can tell you this: every command position here has responsibility, and they're a valued position. Patrol commander, captain, when he's not doing his administrative, he's in the field, but he's particularly a daytime. Jail administrator, he's on call 24/7, as he is. Detective commander, if there's a homicide or anything serious, he's involved. So they are out in the field. My chief deputy, if I'm not available, he's out there. Everybody's a valued position, so that argument really, I don't want to hold a lot of water.
I'm just throwing it out there because it might come up with when y'all negotiate or something like that.
I understand.
My thing is, I just want to make sure, which I know you do a real good job in your staff, so I want to be able, if someone says that to me, I want to be able to answer them. Instead of saying, hey, the sheriff runs his sheriff like he wants to run his sheriff.
Well, what I would say is this, is we're the largest agency in the county. We have a lot of responsibilities, not just the sheriff's office, but we can get into the mental health concern, we get into the other areas, but I gave you some examples that we're being pulled in some areas because here's one thing that's common in law enforcement. When it can't be handled, it defaults to law enforcement. Right. Because we're out there 24/7 and people know if you call, we're going to come.
Well, hopefully we'll make a decision, but on a different note, you know what's going on February 3rd. I expect you to be there to sign that piece of paper with us.
Absolutely, appreciate it.
And maybe the DA can be there to sign his name too.
We'll let him know.
That's
yes,
right.
Sir. Thank you.
We'll take a minute. I don't want to belabor it because we are going into excruciating detail on this shortly. So, other questions, gentlemen?
I appreciate your being here and your staff, and Yeah, and your request, I mean, I understand, it's just gonna be a matter of what we can do with all the requests that we're gonna have and maintain a big fiscal responsibility to the citizens of the county. But yeah, I mean, I fully understand what you're saying. And I didn't think I had to buy as many radios as you guys.
Yeah, you start adding that up, it's expensive.
Yeah, we was talking about it earlier. It's like deja vu all over again when we talk about the radios. And
Yeah, the biker when they first came in.
There better be a discount on 1,400 radios.
There should be some buying power there.
They should be exactly right. Exactly right. We appreciate what you do and what everything that's going behind the scenes too, and your litter pickup program. That's good use of resources. So I share that with you. I know that every time I make a call that's with an area, it's addressed immediately. So,
And I would say to the commissioners here, whenever you do see an area as we do, because when we're out riding, commanders are out riding, we're looking for spots too. But we see those areas where it's trashy, let us know, because it goes on the list, and we'll make every bit of our effort. My understanding, Greg, if you can help me on this, on the litter pickup with the state, have they cut back or excuse me?
Yes, they have. They have suspended their contractors.
Yeah.
So it's
I heard
just,
the
it's
same
just
thing.
Do we get any reimbursement for us for what we do?
to my knowledge, no, we've not got any.
Not anymore, they cut that off. They got that lawsuit.
The state used to give us money.
Well, we're still out there, but if you see something, let us know.
I appreciate it. That's a great program.
What we
I'm glad
do
we
have
thought
is
of next
plenty of
year.
litter. Well, the Governor's Crime Commission grant coming up, do they have any positions, I think a letter of interest due in January?
We do, actually, some of those got backed up because of some lawsuits and everything, but some of those grants are now coming through on equipment, stuff that we previously made requests for. I can tell you this, I think, if I'm correct, is since I've been in office to the present, we've saved tax dollars, $1.7 million on seized asset monies from when we seize money from the bad guys, putting to good work. So again, we're going to continue to use the bad guys' money whenever we can seize it. But as far as grants go, we just found out the COPS grant just came open just recently. We're going to try to get on that and possibly could help us with some positions that we're just talking about. So we're going to make every effort. We appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One last thing real quick, Sheriff, I should have asked Felicia about this, but our fraud investigation, how's that going?
I would have to yield to Felicia.
Okay, I'll get some information from Felicia.
But I think it is very important, and I think when people know that you have somebody looking into it, it's going to cut down on it. And also to the code enforcement officers and stuff, working with Carrie, we appreciate her support, but we also appreciate what they do.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's move on.
Y'all have a
Okay.
good.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I get some. I got some. Mark, you ready?
I've heard this, so I'll give you, how many more full?
No, 3.
Thank you, Mark. Tertius good.
With the other packet that I handed you, there was a single sheet, and I know there's a lot of information on this. I'll try to be very brief. I feel sure y'all may have questions about this, and I've already met with Mr. Metzger, Paul, and Pat in planning. But it's basically guidance not only for this current budget year, but for future ones and for planning for the next reappraisal. Although we've just finished one in 2019, they never truly stop. It takes several years to plan, fund, and complete them. We're currently on an 8-year cycle. There is no action by the commissioners needed to stay on an 8-year cycle. The factors that we have to look at when we're considering a reappraisal is not only the easy things like data integrity, where things change condition or people build unpermitted structures between revals, but the Department of Revenue recently, a couple years ago, instituted a new standards of reappraisal. We were grandfathered under our previous reevaluation, but the next reevaluation will have to have the plan, the budget, and the type of reevaluation approved by the Department of Revenue, and they'll also be conducting random data checks, which they will then notify the commissioners of their findings. The most important consideration, of course, is the health of the real estate market. We do see it coming back. The way that we measure that is our sales ratio. It's the relationship between our tax values to what's selling. It's the median, not the average, and it's based on a random state average, a random state pulling of those sales ratios. The main thing to consider in the timing of a reevaluation is in the 4th year, which will be 2023, after you perform a reevaluation, if your sales ratio, basically the tax values, drop below 10% of what things are selling for, then you could be equalized in your public utilities. Rockingham County is blessed. We have $864 million of our value currently is in public utilities. That's out of our $7.6 billion total ad valorem. If we were equalized, we would lose $86 million in value, which equates to about 600,000 tax dollars. This happened once before, I believe it was in the year 2007, when we were on an 8-year between 2003 and 2011. We can never totally accurately predict how this market is going to be when we look out to 2023. As in my other report, we're currently, the reported value or the reported sales ratio for next year should be about 98.9. We were 100.7 reported for this year. So we have seen a little bit of, which is a good news. It means things are selling more. But in our county, it depends on where they pull these random samples, as the northern part acts totally different from the southern part. Another huge consideration is cost of the reappraisal. We budget currently $130,000 from our budget each year as a reserve for this reappraisal. That would equate to about $1 million in 8 years. We have $36,000 remaining from our previous 2019 reappraisal budget, and that will be utilized as we work on the current appeals to the Property Tax Commission. The timing of and type of reappraisal that we select will be something that we will seek guidance from the commissioners on, especially if we were to advance the cycle from 8 years. It would require a resolution. The problem is projecting the cost of the next reevaluation. We currently did a hybrid reevaluation using a contractor and staff, but due to retirements in the next few years, it would require a staffing change to continue with that because it's very labor intensive. You can do a fully contracted reappraisal, which can run as much as $1.5 million. You can do an in-house reappraisal, which could be $800,000 to $1 million when you add staff back into the equation, since we are not currently staffed for a total in-house reevaluation. So the huge thing would be the timing. In working with Mr. Metzler, Pat, and Paul, we had a meeting and I kind of laid out our projections and what it looked like. We don't have enough data to truly accurately tell you what it's going to be doing in 2023. I think we would all love to know what the real estate market will be like. We've seen radical changes from boom to bust, 06 to 08. If we wait one more year to make the decision on timing or advancing it, we'll have more data, but you can always, if we were to not advance a reval, we could always be equalized in 2023. We can wait a year and still perform a reval, which could mean 1 year of equalization or might not mean any equalization at all. It's a total unknown. What we thought about is currently advancing during the budget process from $130,000 per year to $200,000 per year for this reserve, not knowing what the timing may be, so that if we need to advance out of that 8 year, we would have the money available and not take the hit in 1 year. I regret there's a huge amount of unknowns. Mr. Metzler will tell you we've done a lot of work on it. We actually have contractors coming in that he will get to talk to. We still have research to do, but we wanted to make you aware that since I can't predict 2023, the potential that if our market really booms, we could actually, we may gain money in new construction, but you can lose money in public utility. With us, public utility is a huge part of our ad valorem tax base.
I'm just, maybe I missed something. Why are we talking about 2023? That's 3 years away.
Yes, sir.
when we're on an 8-year revow cycle.
Yes, sir. In 4 years into your revow cycle by state law, if our tax values drop 10%
Which you
below
probably won't.
sales, we hope not. We would lose 10% of our public utility value.
So what you're asking to do a revow every 4 years?
The state suggested, we are currently not staffed or budget for that, but if we wait another year and see if the real estate's booming, we may need to do one in year 5 or 6 so that we don't lose that 10% for 4 years, which could be several $1 million from our public utilities.
So you want to do a revow every 4 years? Is that what you're asking?
Well, let me ask you this. You're saying we need to look at this again in about a year to 2 years?
Yes, sir.
Let's do that.
And see if we need to advance it. There's so many unknowns. I just don't want you not to know what could happen.
Gotcha.
But you also, you're asking us to put in the budget to encumber $200,000 a year.
We're gonna still need to do that regardless, I mean.
Which what we've been doing.
Yeah, well, we're 130, right?
130 currently.
Okay, 70,000.
And suggesting 200,000, because another factor is the type of revow, even in 8 years, what it could cost.
He's just giving you a foresight of what maybe our concerns are, and that in a year, we'll come back and have more of a definitive answer as far as what we'd recommend.
And I have facts and figures, and I'm always available if you have any questions to call or come by my office.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I do have a question. We're talking about this 200,000, and so Pat addressed this earlier this morning with regards to the general fund. Would this 200,000 that we're setting aside each year be calculated by the auditors and sitting up there, and then you have to do your adjustments to pull it out, or is that put somewhere else?
It's actually, it's down in my, pulling out the extra down at the bottom.
So it
it's
would,
not.
it would be shown in there.
It's in the
number at
auditor's
top.
number that's
Okay.
available, and it's really not. This is part of the adjustments I made to make sure everybody's clear that we're not appropriating that again.
It's shown in there now. If you look on there, I think it was $73,000 left in revaluation reserve, so that would just start growing.
Right, I just thought when I'm bringing that up, since we're talking about it this morning, I wanted to clarify where that would go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
And we need, does that need to be in a motion right now to add that, or you just doing it at budget time?
Just do it by the time.
Thank you. Me and my staff appreciate y'all's support.
Thank you.
You got a great staff, by the way.
Thanks, Lauren.
Mr. Metzler.
Last week, we have Nicole Smith now, who's
I don't
a
think
short
you'd bail out on us.
timer, but she knows our needs, and maybe we discussed it thoroughly with staff.
I am before you to talk about implementing the 1/3 pay market study that we used to do years ago. For a consulting fee cost alone, you're probably going to be looking at an average of $16,000 to $20,000 just to pay a consultant to come in to do the 1/3 studies. In the past, when we had the pay studies, the average budgeted in the past was between $175,000 to $200,000 each year. We currently have about 200 or so positions on the pay plan, so doing a 1/3 study, you would be looking at about 60 so positions each year. And basically what this would just be doing is making sure that our salaries are comparable to what the market is paying. Positions that we have had difficulty recruiting for, you guys are already aware of the inspectors. They got a new building inspector position added to the budget 7-1. That's when we posted it. We still have not filled that position, having a hard time getting applicants and things in to apply for that. We've also had some difficulties with our public health nurses with what our minimum salary is, what we pay for those. The planner position, that's been posted since August, and we have been interviewing people, but we are losing out to people, other organizations that are paying a little higher salary than what we are paying. Same issue with our IT positions. They got a report developer position added to the budget July 1. It's been posted since July. We have still yet to be able to fill that position. A lot dealing with the salaries. Just in 2019 alone, our high turnover area departments would be our public safety, EMS, sheriff, detention officers, telecommunications, and as Felissa mentioned, our social services, income maintenance caseworkers, and our social workers. So that's just kind of like an overview. If you guys have any questions.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question. You said that you do a third of these positions. would this first third be these high-profile positions that we're having trouble with?
That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, we've talked about this. So the ones that are specialized, like your building inspectors, your environmental health, your DSS workers, those that are specialized, we'd recommend doing the first third, and then the next third, the next third. The most specialized, the most difficult to maintain in our organization.
So just to address this, so the last time we did a real class and comp study was Springstead.
Springstead, we began that about 2015, 2016, so that's the last time that we've had a market study.
So it'll be 5 years at this point is the last time we've looked to see are we paying the right amount for certain jobs. And building inspectors is a good example. The economy down at that time, it's easier to hire people. The economy goes up like it is now. Our hiring rate is not competitive. And we've addressed that individually, but we have other jobs that are the same way. In a perfect world, if you had all the funding that you would need, you would do merit raises and study your positions. Study your position, make sure that your hiring rate is at least somewhat competitive. Merit raises, make sure that the people that are hard workers that work here are more than the person who was just hired yesterday. So that's what this is, the other half.
And when you did it before, years past, PTRC did it, but I would recommend using somebody other than the PTRC.
Mr. Chairman, we're talking about $300,000. Is that right, Pat?
That's not building them a courthouse, that's not building a courthouse.
I was just looking at your salary, 1/2 year merit raise for.
That's just merit, so what Nicole is talking about is totally outside of that. That would be a whole new additional pot of money to add in here.
How much, what is that pot of money you may have said?
The average that we budgeted in the past was between $175,000 to $200,000 each year.
So you're talking about doing about $200K to address the salary needs of 1/3 of the county employees, which is about how many people?
I'm not sure about how many people it is, but you'd be looking at.
How many positions?
It's about 66 positions.
66 positions.
And the money will depend on what they find. So
Correct.
if the 1/3 study goes in and says, hey, your hiring rate for all these is very competitive, there will be no adjustment to those. But if they come in and say, your environmental health specialist or
So
whatever.
this has nothing to do, this is just a job.
It's a job study.
It's a job study.
But that recommendation would need to be budgeted. It's a shot in the dark, right? It's a number.
Correct, and there's just an average cost. We wouldn't know until the actual study was done and see where positions would need to be moved, and if people within those positions needed to have a pay increase.
But this would completely fund that job study for about 1/3 of the positions.
Yes, for 1/3.
And it would be your recommendation that we continue this cycle every 3 years, your position, your study for your pay class would be reviewed.
That's usually why they do a 1/3 study, is that every 4 years, I'm guessing, then at that point the positions are studied.
Mr. Travis?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Lance. 5 years ago, we just paid Springstead to do a study for all departments.
That's right.
So if the county would maintain a merit-based increase, you would never have to do another study. But
We are doing a merit, but you're doing 2%, 2%, 2%. But if the market out there increases the positions by 12%, you're still behind. So when you're hiring people,
Well, I
you're not
understand
competitive.
that. I understand that, but even with all this pay increases that we've done, studies we've done, we still are a training ground for them to go somewhere else, because we can't compete with Guilford County with the sales tax they get. So we're always gonna be a training facility here, always. So if you're trying to pay an inspector $70,000 that Guilford County pays $70,000, you're not gonna get it. That's ridiculous. We can't do it. So why keep doing 1/3 study, 1/3 study, 1/3 study, when we already know where the study is? We just gotta maintain a proper merit-based increase.
We've talked about this before, but we'll never be able to pay what Guilford pays.
No, we can't do it. So why waste that $300,000 to pay for a study? Invest that $300,000 and give these people a raise.
The study's not for 16,000, it's not 300,000.
Well, you see what I'm saying?
The problem is, while we won't be able to pay as much as Guilford, and we have things here to offer that Guilford doesn't have to offer, so that lets us
No,
attract.
really, you don't.
You don't want to fall, but so far behind them. I mean, if the starting pay for an inspector is $55,000 and our starting pay is $32,000, we're never going to be able to fill that
I mean,
position.
I understand that, Paul, but it's an endless cycle.
Absolutely.
You're never gonna freaking get there. So asking for more money, asking for more pay studies is not gonna fix the problem.
I think your point here is we're 16,000, if you put it all on one position, is not gonna make up the difference. So we need to continue to look for those other things that might entice people to be
But
here.
what you don't understand is 16,000 is just to do the study. They gonna come back and say, well, to get us right, it's gonna cost 300,000
Well,
for
to
this
get it-
1/3
To
study.
get us right, it's gonna be required whether there's a study or nay. We're
That's
just
right.
trying to get the most accurate use, most efficient use of our money.
This is
Yes,
trying
sir.
to-
Just a second. We're moving too quick. Mr. Perk.
I understand what Commissioner Travis is saying, but my understanding is we're gonna forego the cost of this Springstead study that we paid $16,000. We're gonna put approximately $200,000 in an encumbered fund to address 1/3 of the positions we have internally, so we're not spending that
So
$16,000.
you're increasing the salary.
So we're gonna be doing, kind of what you're saying, but a little different, so you're gonna be looking at the starting, the midpoint, and the maximum for each position. It's never gonna get to Greensboro or one of our competitive counties, but if we do that every third year, I do think it will address, and we continue the merit raise, because I think the merit raises are important. But if we continue that and address the inequities we have within a position class, it may help alleviate some of that. Do I think we're ever gonna be able to stop what we have with folks looking for employment in competing with our neighbors? Nah, but you know, it is what it is, and I think this is a realistic step. I know that I fought this battle. If you don't, before you know it, and that's why I think that if you start this, you can't stop it, because then you're gonna create a compression, and you don't wanna pay compression. Those are really hard to dig out of.
That's what happened
We need
in
to constantly do the merit increase.
Yeah.
But we already got a set zone, starting salary, ending salary, max. There you go, you got it. Just use that merit raise to get there.
I know, but Mr. Chairman, I agree with you, but if you don't, if you just go in and pick certain positions out and don't look at the pay scale holistically, before you know it, you've moved up this class
Right.
here, and
So
building
why-
inspectors up, and that's gonna do this right here.
Right, why wouldn't you every year just increase the max 2 or 3% every year for the salary range? You don't need to do a study, just do a 2%.
Typically, we hire at the min, so if you have your min's from 31,000 to 60,000, and you don't increase that min every year, you'll be stuck in the same situation.
Well, that's what I'm saying, 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%.
That would be a way to do it. I think what a 1/3 study tries to do is say, okay, 4 years ago, market rate for a paramedic was $40,000.
Right.
Now, market rate for a paramedic is still $40,000. We don't need to mess with them.
Yeah, right.
But there could be others that market rate has gone up 6%. And so this is telling you where to put your money as opposed to just equally increasing every
And-
job range.
And it will come back to us before it's changed.
Oh, 100%.
This would be a recommendation, so we'll get to see. But,
I think the bottom line is, we are paying for better information to more efficiently use whatever our salary budget is. And, like I said, we've started down this road, and to back off at this point would be costly.
This is what got us to where we had to do Springstead. Where we spent 1.8 million because we didn't do this for years and years, and it was compressed, and we had to address it all at once.
Right. What else?
That's all I have.
We're not gonna solve this one today, but we appreciate your information.
It'll be a part of the budget process, we just want you guys to understand.
All right, Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Carl. So the last thing that I've got on my list is
Wait a
just,
minute, good luck. Thank you very much. We wish you well in your future endeavors.
Thank you guys for the opportunity to serve here for 8 years.
thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Nicole. Good luck on that.
the last item is just direction, any type of direction you all have for staff and I to be thinking about during the budget process. Anything that you, and I know you guys will probably call and ask for things, we've talked about stuff before, but is there anything here that you want to give us direction on?
I gotta tell you, in the past, you kept us from raising taxes. I'm sure that's the intent, and I think that job's gotta get tougher every year.
Especially this upcoming year.
And I've already heard, you guys have heard valid requests for additional personnel.
Yeah, Lance needs another system.
And Well, I'm just saying, thank you for what you've done. We're gonna rely on you to do your best. I think it's a bit, in talking to my other county commissioner colleagues in other counties, it's a lot less painful here than it is elsewhere, including Montgomery.
Yes, absolutely, been there.
Yeah. Right, gentlemen?
I just want to thank Lance and your department heads for being here today and sharing with us, and Pat for getting the information together. It is going to be I don't envy you on what you get ready to do as far as crafting a budget that we'll all agree upon. I don't know that we all will agree upon, but I do appreciate your efforts and understand that we've seen the state is tasking us even more with some unfunded mandates that we're going to have to come up with a solution with, whether it's Melissa's folks and everything that they do and the additional duties that they're going to incur, or Rodney's folks with the need that the sheriff has, or the need that the school system I'm sure is going to come, or whatever it is. There's a lot of hands out there, and you guys are y'all's recommendation, I appreciate it. Even though if I don't agree with it in the end, I do appreciate the process of what you're doing. So I just want to say thank you.
That's right.
No comment?
Well, again, I'd like to thank all the department heads for being here. Neil, we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Guys, thank you for putting this together. Yeah, it's a tough thing. I mean, when you're trying to be fair to everyone. But all I can say is we'll do our best. Thank you.
We good?
Good. All right.
All right, some of us are going to get together in 9 minutes in the conference room for an agenda review.
Yes, that's right.
So if you guys will be punctual, it remains for me. Emery, always a pleasure to deal with you.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for being here. I realize
Thank you.
I appreciate your wisdom if we don't ask you to talk
You got a
so
lot of
much.
good folks. You need to sometimes you have somebody outside tell you to appreciate it.
Okay. I would seek a motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
Moved in second. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed by nay. We are adjourned till the 3rd of February.